Hi, everybody, and welcome to Book Club with Bay. I am Bay, and this is Bay. Say hi, Bay.
Hi, Bay.
And today we are talking about the Indigo spell, the third book in the Bloodline series, which is a spinoff to Vampire Academy.
Yes.
Ta-da!
It's a good book.
Perfect. Go me. I did a good job. So
You're a doofus.
thanks.
You're welcome.
God damn it. Anyway, I forget what I was going to say.
Should we just go straight into ratings?
Yes, I suppose so. Because I'm
Yeah. This book is what I imagine, because I've never had one, because they're not really a thing here. What s'mores would taste like, but probably with dark chocolate, because there's some bitter stuff in here.
Yeah,
Dark chocolate s'mores.
I don't want to steal your thing, but it works.
We can have the same food rating.
Yeah, it works. It works well enough that I'm just going to steal it.
Go for it.
Yeah, I'm stealing it.
I will allow that.
Yeah, s'mores with dark chocolate. Because it's a really good book. I liked it a lot.
Yeah.
There was a lot of stuff in it that made me squeak. And so I was listening to it while I was driving here, because I am in Colombia in South America. And what?
It's a very long drive.
It's a very long drive, which is why I can listen to a 13-hour book.
Makes sense.
While I drive here. That's how that works. Anyway, so my passport is very busy. And so are my vaccinations. And that's what the stitches are for.
We're off to a great start.
We are. Anyway, so while I'm driving, it was like, and when we get there, I'll say exactly what it is. But while I was driving, there was like a part where like Sydney has to like make a decision, and I'm like yelling in the car, like, just do it, Sydney, just do it. And then she did it, and I was like, yes, we stand, like in the car to nobody but me and Sydney. But I was like very emotionally like, you can do it. I really wanted her to do the thing. By the way, full spoilers for this book, because this is Book Club with Bay, not spoiler-free book review with Bay. So
yes, I was about to say we should make sure we disclaim.
100% spoilers for this book, because we go through the plot, etc., etc. Characters, I guess. One thing I think we should go over a little bit more in depth just before we start out. Miss Terwilliger is a character who was important last book and who was important in the first book, but like her importance is very much in the forefront in this book. So she is Sydney's independent study teacher in the first book. She's kind of she's begrudgingly, from Sydney's point of view, her magic mentor. And now she is less begrudgingly, from Sydney's point of view. Miss Terwilliger is very happy to do it,
Yes,
but
Sydney tricked Sydney into doing it in the first place.
That's who we are. But Sydney becomes much happier to have her in this book. So yeah, so that's the situation there. But she is her magic mentor. She's teaching her magic, and so there's a big dynamic there. And she is a much more central character in this book. Yeah. So that's her. Marcus is another character in this book. Who's kind of
yes. For a second, I was like, "Who the fuck's Marcus?"
He's like the guy.
There's like, okay, so this it seems to be the way with pretty much all Vampire Academy and Bloodlines novels. There's two major plots in each book. and each of the two plots in this book, one, Miss Terwilliger is a major player. The other one, Marcus is the major player.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
so that makes the fact that I was like, who the hell is Marcus, even more ridiculous. He's a very important character.
That would be like being like, who is Mr. Williger? It's like,
I know. Yeah, so Marcus
hey.
is Marcus is the person who we discovered last book is a former alchemist. He is the person who saved Clarence from the Warriors of Light pre-series.
Yes.
So we find Marcus this book. So
Yes.
it's very exciting. Also, just before I forget as well, because even though we streamed for almost 5 hours last time we did a Bloodlines book, we forgot something at the end because we had to speed through the last 8 chapters of the book.
We did. We had to speed through the last third. It took us 5 hours to get through 2/3 of the book.
Yeah, we had to do the last third of the book in about 20 minutes. We forgot to say that Eddie and Eddie decided to give Angeline a chance and asked her out at the end of the last book.
Yes.
Just when Jill realized that she had a thing for Eddie.
Yes.
So.
Dun, dun, dun. Etc. Etc.
Yes. I guess any other characters really we can just if they've only had a brief cameo or if they haven't been in the series before, we'll just
I'm trying to think
as we get to them.
Yeah. So Trey is still here. He's still relevant, all of those people. And so it's more or less other than that, our core cast. Clarence is less of importance here. I don't even think we see him on screen in this book.
No, he only gets very briefly mentioned in relation to Marcus. Micah, we see him, Sydney sees him talking to Jill across a room, and there's a couple conversations about him and the fact that he's got a new girlfriend and stuff because that's Jill's ex-boyfriend. And she ended it with him when she's like, I can't date a human. It's too fucking, weird, I guess.
Yeah.
But he's not actually, that's the most we see in this book.
Yeah.
We just see him talking to Jill across the room.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I can't remember even if he's really a character next book either. But
yeah. So, yeah, more or less those are the characters, and I think that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, in this series, we don't really have to go over characters that often. So.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple new characters in this book, but it's kind of pointless. Like, for example, Alicia, it's kind of pointless to talk about her until we talk about her.
Yeah.
So, shall we get into it then?
Let's do the plot, and we're going to have to be a little smarter about how we do this. Although this plot is not as... There's a lot to it, but it's not as thick as the last one.
No, I don't think we'll...
There's not a 5-hour conversation here. Stop it.
Challenge accepted.
What? We're not going to go for 5 hours. We can't.
Or will we?
Oh, God. Yeah, so how does this book start?
Sydney is being asked if she's a virgin.
Yes, that's right. She's being
night.
asked if she's a virgin in the middle of the night. That's how this book begins. Starts with a bang, except it doesn't.
Or a lack of a bang.
A lack of a bang. Yes.
Yep,
very anticlimactic, if you will.
Yeah. So, Miss Terwilliger's called her out from her...
Hold on, real quick. Don't shake your head at me. You got enough Sims pregnant to produce 19 children in the span of 20 minutes. And she's shaking her head at me for that. And how dare you, first of all. Anyway, continue.
So Miss Terwilliger has pulled Sydney out of bed in the middle of the night and called her down to the dorm lobby to double check that she's a virgin. And Sydney's like, this is just really inappropriate, okay? And she's like, it's important, tell me. And she's like, of course I'm a virgin. She's like, excellent, let's go. And Sydney's like, but I'm in my pajamas. And she's like, too bad, we're going. Okay, I'm taking the child off campus in the middle of the night. It's not weird, I swear. Bye. So, yeah, it's 3 a.m.
Yep.
And apparently, like, they're just like, okay, I get, like, who the fuck lets a teacher take a student out of the dorm at 3 a.m. without letting them get dressed, especially. As far, like, I mean, I know that there's nothing untoward happening, but I think that should be cause for a police investigation.
Like,
am I
a little
wrong?
bit? No, I feel like you're not, but that's not what happened. So,
Yeah.
if it had been a male teacher, it wouldn't have worked.
Yes, or perhaps a male student. But she's a crazy old cat lady. Like, of course they, like, as if they wouldn't think she's a lesbian. She's a middle-aged woman who lives with nothing but cats, and she's weird. Anyway, she drives her out to the desert. What, were they in the desert for this?
No, were they? I don't remember.
Where the frick did she take her? Yes, she took her out to the desert,
and which made it extra weird.
Yes, and Sydney's like, I trust this woman, but is she gonna kill me? Like, am I a virgin sacrifice?
Yeah, she was like, I'm a virgin sacrifice. Oh no, I've been groomed. And I was like, that's a good assumption, I feel.
But Mr. Willig is like, I need you to do a spell to locate someone because they can't know that I'm looking for them, and a virgin has to do it. And Sydney's like, okay, I guess that makes me a little bit more comfortable with you asking then, I guess. But
yeah,
do we have to do this now? And she's like, full moon, damn it, we have to do it now, okay? Here's a picture. By the way, this person is my sister. So, yeah, just find her, okay? Then Sydney's like, okay, I guess I'll try and find her. So she finds.
Yeah, she's also like, you couldn't have warned me a little bit.
Yeah.
That you were going to have me do a virgin sacrifice spell in the middle of the desert on the full moon on the eve of my 21st. Like, nothing. Good Lord.
Yeah. So, Sydney does the spell and works out that Sydney sees LA in general.
Yeah.
And she's like, that's as close as I could get. And then I lost it. So she's in LA and Mr. Willig is like, oh, fuck. Well, we need to teach you some more magic then. And Sydney's like, but why? Why?
And she's like, because you could only work out that it was LA, you idiot.
Because Sydney still at the beginning it's more she has to keep reminding herself that she thinks it's wrong than that she actually thinks it's wrong now. It seems like she just keeps telling herself, no, this is bad. I shouldn't do this thing that I'm doing.
Yeah, because Sydney is basically a fairly powerful, natural born witch.
Yeah.
Poor Sydney.
I know, right?
She was not born into the right profession to be a natural born witch.
Nope. And Sydney's like, but why? You've told me that I'm doing well type stuff. And she's like, it's because it's for your own protection. Bum, bum, bum.
Yeah, which is a good reason because otherwise Sydney wouldn't do it.
Yep. And Sydney's like, what do I need protection from? And she's like, I'll tell you tomorrow. Okay. It's now 4:00 in the morning. We need to get you back to, your dorm so you can sleep because we have class in a few hours. So I'll see you then. Bye.
Yep.
And then next day, she gives her a book and she's like, here's some reading material for your plane. And then we find out that Sydney's about to jump on a plane.
Yep.
So she's
going to a wedding.
Yes. So she says bye to Eddie and gives him the car keys. And she's like, okay, I'm going to the airport now, bye. So she went to the airport, and she gets bumped from her flight voluntarily.
Yes.
So
she got voluntold.
Yes. And Sydney's like, but I got here extra early. And they're like, yes, but look at the family. They have to stay together. So you lost your seat, soz. But here's a first class ticket on a plane leaving now, and it's all the way on the other side of the airport, so you better run.
Mm-hmm.
So Sydney gets there, and she's following along to the safety procedure, because even though she's on a plane like every month, she likes to make sure she stays up to date just in case they change anything. Part of it is also like, it amuses me because like the way she talks, like the way it's written, every time she like there's something like that, it's just and I think part of it's also Emily Schaefer, just how she says it, because her inflections for Sydney are perfect.
Yeah, they really are perfect. Like, because it doesn't sound all that unreasonable when it comes out of like Sydney's head.
I know, but it's like
but it is.
Quote. Yeah, no matter how many times I flew, I always thought it was important to be up to speed on procedures. But the way she says it, it was just like so matter of fact, and be like, this is common sense. This is what you do.
Yeah.
Everything you do, just in case they change one fraction of a thing, I need to make sure I am aware. So I will listen intently and follow along with the safety card every damn time.
Because I'm such the opposite. Every time I fly, I'm like, nope. I'm like I'm already listening to music or an audiobook before the safety thing starts.
I know. I mean, I say that considering I barely fly, but if you've flown once, you know the safety procedure.
Yeah, it's like if the plane crashes, die.
Yeah, put your head between your legs and kiss your ass goodbye, all that stuff.
Yeah, it's probably like it's either gonna explode or you'll live. Like one of the two.
Yeah.
Right?
You'll die or you'll live.
Yeah, you'll die or you'll live. It's a fucking airplane. Like if it crashes, you're probably toast. Literally. So And with that happy thought.
Yes. Then Sydney realizes that she's sitting next to Adrian. And he's like, and he's just sitting there quietly, just looking at her, waiting for her to notice him. Because also they haven't spoken since the end of the last book, when he's like, I love you. And she's like, now, how dare you? And left.
Yeah.
So
this is just the craziest coincidence ever. The mother of all coincidence.
Adrian didn't even orchestrate this, because if he had, it would have been brought up. Like we would have found out at some point that he had orchestrated the entire thing. And also, I don't think that Adrian is that good at chess.
Yeah, I don't think he is either. Also, that's way too romance novel.
Yeah, but they
like a billionaire would have orchestrated this in a shitty romance novel. You know what I mean? Yeah. But like, I don't.
Yeah. I mean, they do hang a lantern on how unlikely this is, though, because Sydney's just like trying to work out the odds of this happening.
Well, yeah, because it also is just very.
Yeah,
but
so
I forgive it because the book is so good.
Yes. So then, I guess it's time for Sydney to try and make awkward small talk with Adrian. So she's like, "So how's the car?" Because she's in love with his car.
Yes, but not him.
Not him, just his car.
Not him, just his car.
And I just love this little interaction, because it's just like, I left it out on the street. I figured it'd be fine till we got back, and makes her freak out, and he just laughs at her. And I just like how he just knows what buttons to push with her. Like
he's like, oh, the car? I left it like in the middle of the road. In the middle of the interstate, actually, now that I think about it. Why do you ask? It's a good
yeah,
moment.
they have really good banter and really like their flirting is written really, really well. Their chemistry is great. Like she did very good. It's actually probably one of the best relationships chemistry wise that I've read ever.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if it would be the best, but it's definitely up there.
Yeah. I agree.
So then they're on the plane. She's trying to read the book, but she couldn't help but just not concentrate on the book and keep concentrating on Adrian. And he's doing a crossword and he can't work it out. So she starts giving him the answers. And then I think they about land at that point. Did anything else? I think she starts to fill him in on what happened with Mr. Williger.
Yeah, I think she does tell him.
Because him and Jill are the only two people that know about the magic stuff, and Jill only knows because she lives in Adrian's head half the time.
Yeah.
So, so she starts to fill him in, and then the plane. I think they get into another argument about their relationship again. And then he's just like, "Oh, that's right," and this is where he makes his declaration of, "You can't stop me loving you, and if you don't like it, well, that's too bad because I will just love you from afar then." And she does another, like, "How dare you?"
Yeah. She's like, "How dare you?"
What right do you have to love me from afar? And he's like, "I have every right."
Stop making me laugh.
I'm sorry.
It really hurts.
So then they, get off that plane, get on the connecting flight, share a car to where the wedding is, and then he's like, "Okay, well, I suppose it was pleasant to see you again, Miss Sage." And she's like, "Indeed, Lord of Ashkov," because they have to pretend like they're not friendly because no one knows that they're off together.
Yes.
So she checks into her bed and breakfast. He goes to his hotel. And then not much happens until the knock, knock, knock on the door, and it's Stanton and Ian, Stanton is kind of like her supervisor, but Stanton and Ian were also the two alchemists that were effectively held prisoner, for lack of a better term, towards the end of the last book of Vampire Academy.
Yeah.
So the three of those have been invited to the wedding as I guess a diplomatic gesture. But I honestly think that was just the excuse that they used. I think Sonia actually probably would have wanted Sydney at the wedding because it's Sonia's wedding, by the way. And they were like, "Well, how can we get Sydney there without saying, oh, by the way, guys, Sydney and Sonia have been working together?"
Yeah.
So it's like, "Oh, we'll just invite Stanton and Ian along too and say, like, it's apologies for holding you hostage, I guess."
Hashtag whoops.
Mm-hmm. So they go to the wedding. It's in middle of Pennsylvania in winter, so it's all snowy, but Sonia found a giant greenhouse.
Mm-hmm.
So they get married in a greenhouse, which I guess is nice.
Yeah.
Alyssa is there with Christian, obviously, because they're still together. And she's queen still, so yay. And Rose is a bridesmaid. And then it's reception time. Oh, Ian also really doesn't like the morale. He's like, "Wow, they actually think that this is like a real wedding." And Sydney's like, "Well, what would you call it?" Then he's like, "An unholy union of unholiness."
Yeah. Yeah. He's like, "They actually think of themselves as people." And she's like, "Jesus, tap dancing Christ. You're like drinking the fucking Kool-Aid, bro. I didn't know you people were actually on that shit." But no, there are people actually drinking the Kool-Aid. Yeah. Which actually kind of scares, it actually serves to scare Sydney a little bit because she's like, Oh God, there are people who are not questioning all of this. I'm alone.
Yes. And at the reception, they get seated with Abe. I'm kind of disappointed because we didn't get enough Abe time in this scene.
Yeah, it was underutilized, I felt.
Yeah. Yeah, he was more or less just there to be like, there's no blood in the food, by the way. I think that was probably about the extent of his participation in that scene.
Yeah.
And then Ian's just like, because Ian also has an epic crush on Sydney. And Ian's just like, I would ask you to dance, but it feels inappropriate in this setting. And then Adrian like just slides in and he's like, did somebody say dance? Why, Miss Sage, would you care to dance with me? And Stanton's just like, I guess it would be a nice diplomatic gesture. I'm sorry, I'm sacrificing you to the wolves. Be gone and dance. And everyone's just looking at it like, of course Adrian would ask the fucking alchemist to dance.
Yeah.
Whereas Adrian's just like, excellent, now I get to dance with you.
Yeah.
And it's sanctioned by your boss.
It's really cute. And she's not happy about it, but it's cute.
Yeah, I think after the dance, I think the two of them go and get a drink or something. And yeah, and then then they overhear someone talking about Lissa being like, well, you know, she might be liberal, but damn, I could look at her all day. Yeah, she's a great improvement over that old hag that was queen before her. And Adrian's just like, and Sydney's like, grabs his hand and he's holding his hand to try and calm him down, which is cute because she didn't even think about it. And then they realize, oh crap, we're holding hands.
Yeah. Yeah, they can't hold hands.
Like, even if, like, you know, Sydney was like, no, I don't mind holding Adrian's hand. They're at a reception surrounded by Maroi Dampiers and two other alchemists, I guess. So, like, they need to be like, you know, we don't know each other, and two, you know, wait a second. Okay. I just need to address something in Twitch chat really quickly. What part of New Zealand are you from? Well, nowhere. Faye is American. She is Southern American, and I is Aussie. I've been to New Zealand, but I pronounce my vowels correctly. I don't do an.
Yeah, you are not you do not have a Kiwi accent.
No, I have an I vowel sound for my eyes, not an O sound for my eyes. I say chips, not chops. I say deck and not dick.
It's true, though.
I say six and not sex.
Yeah. That's like, if you want to know, it's like, okay, can you count for me? And when they get to the letter 6,
if
they get to the letter 6, we're going with that today.
Okay.
Then it's a Kiwi accent. If it's sex at 6, that's what happens. The letter 6. I'm an author.
She promises. I promise I'm an author.
We catch those things in edits, not the first draft. Fixed it.
Anyway, back to book.
Letter 7.
Back to book. A few other Maroi decide to follow Adrian's lead after the successful dance at this point, and someone comes in and is like, hello, Miss Stanton, would you care to dance? And she's like, I guess I can't say no because I made her do it damn it. So Stanton has to go and dance with Amore. And then Sydney runs into Rose and Dimitri, and she's like, hi, Sydney. And Sydney's just like, I hate you because Adrian used to be in love with you, but I also like you because you're Rose. So hi, but I feel weird.
Yeah. It's a little awkward.
Yes.
It's a lot of awkward.
Oh, and then I think, while they were dancing as well, Adrian's like, so how's the Marcus Finch search coming? And she's like, I don't know, but, you know, and he's like, well, why don't you try that spell you did the other, like, you know, last night? And she's like, because it has to be a full moon spell, and because, like, there's 3 nights of a full moon.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, and tonight's the last night. And he's like, well, give me the spell ingredient list and I shall go collect. Okay, I'll meet you in an hour outside. Okay, bye. So he's gone off to gather spell components, and she's like, okay. And so then she's like, oh, I need to go and get a thing from my room, I guess. Bye. And Ian's like, I'll come with you. And she's like, I can handle myself.
Yeah.
Okay, bye. So her and Adrian go and do a spell, and she finds, like, she's in like a grimy studio apartment, and she can see a really weird building out the window, and she's comes out and she's like, oh, I saw this building. Because she couldn't narrow down the location or whatever. And so she describes the building to him. He's like, oh, do you mean this? And he had Googled it. And she's like, that's the thing. And he's like, well, there we go. You have a region now. So I was amused when he was like, oh, what was it? The old mission, Santa Barbara?
Yes.
Yeah, he's like, it's the old mission, Santa Barbara. It's in Santa Barbara. I don't know. I just love that we have so much Adrian in this series.
Yeah, I love Adrian so much. Like, he's great. He's also like, not that I like I said before, not that I don't like Rose. It's just,
you love Sydney?
I love Sydney.
Yeah.
Her head's more fun.
Oh, I lost sound.
What?
Oh, great. My headphones just disconnected.
Oh, no.
They always do this, and it's rude.
It is rude.
I need new ones. Although it might be my computer. I need new headphones and a new computer, okay?
Yeah.
I'm just going to turn my... Oh, no, I can't turn my Bluetooth off. Okay, can you chat?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, one of my headphones died.
Okay.
It just broke down. I was like, oh, one's dead. Let's disconnect from both.
Yeah, it's like I like Rose, but being in Rose's head is never like fun. You know? Like, it has its moments, but it's never just like, this is fun.
Yeah, it's more... You enjoy the story, and you don't hate being in Rose's head.
Yeah, which
is fun. I really enjoy Sydney's internal dialogue.
Right. So, like, Vampire Academy is really good because the story is so good, and the story is so powerful. This is like so enjoyable more because Sydney is so much fun to like. It's so much fun to be inside her head.
Yeah,
like there are a couple of
because she had a few really naive moments in this book too.
Yeah, she did.
And she's just like, oh, she must really be interested in increasing her math grade. It's like, no,
Sydney.
No, she clearly has a thing for the dude.
And even like when she's just like, yes, the safety procedure is very important. I don't know. It's really fun. But yeah, there are a couple of reasons why books are good. And of the two, you know, it's just really fun to be in this character's head, and like you could just be brushing their teeth and not be having fun. And then sometimes it's just the story is that good. And Vampire Academy, it's the story. And this one, it's just because Sydney's head is so much fun. Yeah. I mean, the story is good too. Yes. But Sydney's just also a really enjoyable inside head protagonist. Yes. Yeah. Yes. And also, like, you're not as exhausted when you're done one of these books.
Yeah, no, these don't have quite the emotional. Vampire Academy has a lot of angst.
Yeah.
This one has romantic complications, but it doesn't feel angsty.
Yeah.
So it's, even though it is a forbidden romance, I can't remember if next book is angsty, because next one, obviously, like, they spoiler, by the end of this book, they've decided they're going to be together, but then something happens after that that is going to make it very complicated for them.
Yeah.
So I can't remember if next book is angsty or not. I don't think so. I think it's probably about the same level of, like, their complications are handled in the same way as in this one. So yep, they bump into Sonia, and they have to pretend like they had snuck off to have some alcohol to get back into the reception.
Which, of course, Sonia can see their auras.
Yeah.
So Sonia knows that they're goddamn liars.
Yeah, but Adrian's just like, look, a successful distraction. How's married life in the last 2 hours? And she's like, oh, it's amazing. I love him so much. And then it's done. And Sydney's like, she knew we were lying. And he's like, yeah, but I don't think she's going to think that we're off doing human magic. And she's like, oh, crap. She probably thinks we're off hooking up. God damn it. But then, so Sydney.
Why are there 5 trains all at once?
Because they hate us.
Sorry about that.
Yeah. So Sydney goes off back to Palm Springs. Adrian's going to be staying in Pennsylvania for a few more days to, you know, catch up with his peeps and shit. So she gets home and goes to meet Eddie, Jill, and Angeline in a different suburb of the Palm Springs region. So they get there, and Angeline's all cuddled up with Eddie, and Jill's just sitting there like, kill me.
I hate life. Yeah. She's unhappy.
But the good news is, like, because Jill is bound to Adrian, she's been really upset and angry at Sydney since Sydney rejected Adrian. Just because not because she doesn't understand why, but I guess because she has to live in Adrian's miserable head.
Yep.
And it's Sydney's fault that he's miserable.
Yep.
But because Sydney and Adrian had some amends made on the trip, she's like, Sydney, you're back. I missed you so much. Hug, you know, type thing. And so then Sydney's like, oh, well, we did a wedding thing and here's pictures, and they're like, yay. So, and then they ate, and that was, I don't think anything. Jill's sad because she misses her mum and stuff. And then they go back to school. Not a lot happened at the dinner. It was more just like, yeah, everyone's back together. Jill's miserable because of those two, and well, you know, it's kind of just an establishing scene for the dynamics of the group.
Yeah.
As of the start of this book. And oh, that's right. So now Sydney has to try and work out where in LA Veronica, Miss Terwilliger's sister, is. All she has to go on is Victorian neighborhood. So she goes to speak to one of the other history teachers who specializes in, I guess, was it architecture or something?
Yeah, something like that.
So yeah, she's like, oh, well, I'll look into what neighborhoods would have that style of house and blah, blah, blah. So I'll, you know, I'll get it to you later. and then Miss Terwilliger calls Sydney and she's like, come meet me. So she goes to meet her. And she's like, here, have this garnet pendant on chain and wear at all times because it will shield your magic from you. Or it'll shield other people from sensing your magic.
And Sydney was like a big character moment for Sydney is that she's not even like upset by it.
Yeah.
Like she's a little, but she's like, makes sense. I would like to not be soul sucked.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be in danger. So sounds like it's plan Stan. And you're like, yes, we stan.
Yeah, no, Sydney. This book is Sydney finally accepting that she's not like other alchemists.
Yeah.
And that she doesn't want to be that.
Yeah, and then she's also like accepting the fact that because of all the situations that she's in, magic is useful, it's not evil. And also because of what happens with Mr. Williger, and this, I guess, you know, we discuss full spoilers. Mr. Williger goes way out of her way to protect Sydney. So from Sydney's point of view, Mr. Williger goes from like this person who is doing something that Sydney doesn't want her to do and teaching her magic to someone who is like really protecting her and really helping her.
At her clear, what's the word I'm thinking of?
It's like her detriment. Like,
yeah, it is.
It's a sacrifice for her to do it.
Yeah, because like it takes an epically massive physical toll. Like magic.
Yeah. So it's not easy. It exhausts you. It's not easy on Mr. Williger. You can actually see it like in her face. She's not thinking as clearly. She looks older. She's having to take days off and stuff like that because of her making charms for Sydney. So that also softens her up to magic. So she's really like softening to all of this magical stuff just because she's like getting to know the people, and then also because of just how useful it is, which really plays into Sydney's character in both aspects, because she's a very like
pragmatic,
human driven person where like she really cares about people, but then she's also a very logical person and very utilitarian in nature. So it plays to like both sides of her character. Yeah. And so it works really well. Like the arc works really well.
Yeah. And also that plot in this book as well also makes it quite clear that even if Sydney's like, nope, fuck magic users can still come after her. So it's kind of, it's better she learns how to use it and increase her power to defend herself and those around her.
Yeah.
Instead of just going, no, I refuse, and I am now an easy target.
Yeah, which also gives her a way to justify it to herself.
Yeah.
Which sort of gets her foot in the door. So it works out.
And so now Sydney's like, okay, you need to actually tell me what the fuck, like, what is going on? What is wrong? Why are you freaking out? Why are you trying to find your sister? Why can't you know, etc. And she's like, my sister Veronica, a few years back, she sucked the magic and life out of 5 young untrained witches to increase her power and to also take their youth and beauty, because those 5 people were all left comatose and incredibly aged, and they never woke up. And it started again. There's been, she found a news report of one young girl who has been aged to all hell in a coma, and she was a untrained witch.
Yeah.
And so Sydney's just like, oh, fuck. Yeah, no, I will do whatever you need me to do to help you, because we need to make sure this doesn't happen to anyone else. And Mr. Welliger's like, well, our coven keeps a list of, you know, people who have magical potential. because we can sense them. So these are the ones in the LA. I'll get you the names of the ones in the LA area. And I'm going to need you to go out and warn them all. Also, I'm going to have to get you to check out those neighborhoods when you get the list, because she can't know that I'm after her yet, because then she'll be on the defensive, and that will be no good for anyone.
Yeah.
And Cindy's like, okay. And she's like, but you have to go in disguise. And she goes, I can't disguise myself yet. And she's like, no, but you do have that spirit using the Moroi that is, you know, in love with you. So maybe you could take him with you and get him to disguise your appearance. Yes. And she's like, I guess I'll ask him when he gets back. Then what happens after that conversation? Okay, so then it's more or less it skips to the next day. Sydney goes to class, then Miss Terwilliger's not there. There's a sub there, and it's pretty much just like I love her lesson plan for the sub.
Yes.
A 2-word lesson plan.
Distract them. When you have to have a sub for your students, when you're a teacher,
no, I just canceled class.
Just make sure that the lesson plan, if you ever teach high school, the lesson plan is distract them. I think that's great.
2-word lesson plan.
2-word lesson plan. Distract them.
As an art teacher, that would be super fun. Just come and be like, we're doing XYZ, but we're doing no, we're doing this.
Distract them. Like, just dodgeball. What?
PE now class. PE class now.
And they're like, no, we're too old. We're seniors. We don't do that anymore.
Suck my ass, kid.
I really hate it in college when you have a sub. You're like, we're in college.
Oh, yeah, no, that's bullshit. Just cancel the fucking class. Like a grown ass man.
The only time I accepted it was one time. It was like one of my professors, and like I loved both of the professors. They were best friends, and it was like one of my professors emailed us, and he was like, "This one's going to be subbing," and it was another one of my favorite professors, and we were all like, "Done, we agree," because we all had a class with him that semester too, and we were like, "Sounds like a plan. That's fine. We're cool with that." And then we just talked about Queen the entire class and got nothing done. It was great. Oh, God. Sorry. Anyway, distract them. It worked.
Yep. So, Trey, because he's also Miss Terwilliger's TA, was like, oh, also, by the way, your lesson plan, the plan for your independent study this afternoon is like, you're going to show up and the sub's going to say, be free, young Sydney, and then you can go be free. So Sydney's like, excellent. I'll mark as Finch investigate then.
Yep.
And
this is, that's how we like get. I was like, I'm pretty sure this is about when we get started on the Marcus.
Yeah, well, I think this is where she goes to. Yeah, so then it's more or less like, as I went through the day, I was thinking of what I could do, and I went to thing, and they did that thing. So I was like, excellent, I'm done. So she drove to Santa Barbara to find, like, she went to the old mission, and then was like, okay, this is the angle that I saw in the books. Oh, sorry, in my vision. So I got to go that away. And then so she's off trying to find the building that she was inside in the vision. And luckily, because she is a stickler for detail and she's a math freak and everything, she managed to work out that she would have at least have to have been on the 3rd floor of the building. She worked out the right distance away and everything. And she's like, okay, well, this is literally the only building that it could be. So we're going to do that one. So she goes inside and she's got a picture of him and she's asking everyone and they're like, no English, no English. So then she asks them in Spanish and they're like, oh, fuck. No, I don't know him. Bye. And then this little kid comes up and he's like, oh, you're looking for Dave? Yeah, he's not here, but he lives up there.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, thank you. I guess I shall go up fire escape then.
Yeah.
And when she climbs up the fire escape, she works out that. Now, this seems like a really. The way I always thought that an exterior fire escape would work, right, is that every apartment would have access to one. But
this was like the only part of the book that I was like, what? Because the way that she gets into this apartment was super weird.
Yeah. So
am I wrong about that?
Let me just. Yeah. So she does an invisibility spell on herself, where unless someone is specifically looking for her, or if she makes eye contact with someone, then you can't see her.
Yeah.
So she goes up the fire escape and then realizes she needs to be one apartment over from the fire escape. And so what did she do? The distance wasn't that great, but on the narrow ledge between them would feel like miles.
So
okay.
What she does is she has to she melts the glass.
Yeah, she throws a pouch. Yeah, she throws a pouch at the glass and melts it.
And then she yeets, and then she scrambles in.
Yeah, wait, no, she crept along the ledge. There was a ledge sticking out the side of the building, and then she crept along, and then her foot slipped, and then she started to fall and grabbed hold of the window.
Oh. I don't know why in my head she jumped across a thing.
Probably because when she started to fall, she was like, ah!
Yeah, so I don't know why she
probably zoned out for about 10 seconds there.
Probably.
But she's in the right apartment, so yay, her math was correct.
Yay.
She didn't waste all of her glass melty pouches on the wrong apartment. So she gets in there, she's having a look around, she sees a book and she's having a look at it. It's Catcher in the Rye, and then something jumped out at her and it was a man, and he's like, ah, and she's like, ah, and she got slammed around. I think she got a punch, and then she did a thing.
Get punched.
Yeah. And then she did something that really hurt his wrist, and he's like, ah, and she's like, back off, and he's like, ah, and then they're like, ah, and then the fight's over.
Yeah. Because then Sabrina's there with a gun, and she's like, nah, and they're like, nah, and it's like, ah. And then he's like, oh, hey, what's up, Sydney?
Oh, yeah, because Sabrina was the chick from the Warriors of the Light meeting in the last book that, Sydney's like, wow, she looks really angry all the time.
Yeah.
And she's like, it's you. And Sabrina's like, it's you. And she's like, Marcus, it's her. And he's like, who her? And Sydney her. And he's like, oh, I've been waiting to meet you. And then she's like, I don't understand. And she's like, she's a spy. I'm a Marcus. You're a Sydney. And now we're all caught up. And he's like, so, why are you looking for me? And she's like, well, because I heard your name and the alchemists are denying that you exist, and I want to know why, and this and that. And he's like, well, I look for alchemists like you. And she's like, what do you mean like me? And he's like, ones that want to break out of being an alchemist. And she's like, I never said I wanted to do that. And he's like, then why are you here? And then he's like, how do you know about me, Clarence? I know you. They have a good chat about Clarence. And then he's like, well, if you want to get this, and points to the blue tattoo down his face, you're going to have to, and she's like, why the hell would I want that? And he's like, to break the compulsion from your tattoo. And she goes, what do you mean? What compulsion? And they're like, well, there's the compulsion where you can't tell people about, the vampire world. But then also, especially if you've done something naughty and they re-ink you soon after, you've got your group like they compel you to group loyalty and this and that. And she's like, oh dear.
Yeah.
Oh dear, I might be being mind controlled. And she doesn't like that.
No.
Sydney does not like the mind control thing. And he's like, yeah, so, you know, there's the thing that we use to break the tattoo, but then the blue tattoo, you know, makes sure that they can't redo what we broke. And he's like, oh, well, I guess we got to move from this location. Oh, yeah, because I had to chat about that. And he's like, yeah, we do that, but all in good time. I'll tell you the rest of the stuff, you know, when I feel like it's appropriate. But now we need to move because you found me. That means that they can find me and this and that. And his wrist is all sore. And he's like, and Sabrina's like, oh, should get that wrist looked at. He's like, I can't go to the doctors, you know, because the alchemist might find me there. And Sydney's like, I know a way you can get that healed.
So we're going to see Adrian. So they have like a bit of a back and forth, and then we go and see Adrian, and then apparently she's got a black eye. So we get there, and then Adrian is like, what happened to you? And then she's like, oh, it's no big whoops. He just punched me in the face. And so Adrian goes apeshit, and there's a guy fist fight, and so it takes like forever for them to like yeet apart. And so she's like, you know, Adrian, bedroom now. She sits on his bed and she's like, oh crap, I'm sitting on his bed. So she gets up and she's like, never doing that again, ever in my life. Will I ever be on a bed with Adrian for any reason ever? Famous last words. And and so yeah, so then he talks her into letting him heal her, and she lets it happen when she gets a moment. And she doesn't even feel that tainted afterwards. She doesn't take a shower. She doesn't bathe herself in Clorox. Like, you know, she doesn't have a mental breakdown. Good for Sydney. So yeah. Sydney is A-okay after that happens. Like,
yeah, I did like that when they're in the bedroom. He's like, I've said over and over, I'd do anything for you. I just keep hoping that it'll be something like, Adrian, let's go hot tubbing, or Adrian, take me out for fondue. And she's like, why in the world would I ever say that? And he's like, I like fondue. I just love how he just goes off on like these completely irrelevant tangents. And Sydney's just left standing there like, but why?
Not to bring up a sore subject, but that kind of brings me like to House of Night when crazy shit is happening and they try to bring up tangents and they're like Project Runway, and it's like, no, because like it doesn't work, but here it works.
Well, also because it's usually only Adrian that does it, and he's a little bit kooky because he's bipolar. So,
yeah, like it has to be a character who would it has to be a character who would do it. Two, it has to be at a time where things are urgent, but not so urgent that it doesn't make sense to do it. Like here, it makes sense because, like, yeah, a thing is happening, but it's not like, you know.
But Marcus can wait an extra minute while.
Right. Like the world's not ending. So, like, it's like we're in the middle of like an action point, but we're not. So we can take a second for the tangent. It's not like Nephra is coming to kill everybody. Let's talk about Project Runway. Oh my God. Like,
yeah. So
anyway,
this is how you do side tangents. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So Adrian's, yeah, just like, I'll heal him if you let me do you too. Cause you know, do you really want to explain that black eye to everyone? So she's like, fine. So he heals her. He heals Marcus. Marcus and Adrian don't like each other. And because also he lent her his coat when they went out to do the stuff.
Oh my God, yes. And so hold on. Okay. So I want to say it because then she's like, so I have to give you your coat back. He's like, why? You can just keep it, sleep with it, think of me. And she's like, how dare you? Why you said you wouldn't keep bringing up the romantic thing? And he's like, Sydney, I'm not the. I look. Sometimes it gets cold, and I thought it was be warm. And thinking of me is not necessarily romantic. I think you're the one with the romance problem. I should get a restraining order against you. God, I think we should call somebody. You have a problem. And she's like,
and then he just
Adrian.
walked out before she could say anything else.
It was great.
But yeah, also in the conversation in the bedroom, he was also like, also, whatever you need on the Veronica Hunt front, like, yeah, no, I'll be there.
Yeah.
So she goes home, like she went back to school and, you know, then it's the next morning and Angeline wakes her up like really, really damn early and Sydney's like, what do you want? I haven't even had coffee.
Yes.
And Angeline's like, I'm failing math and I don't want to get kicked out.
And then so Angeline's like, can't you tutor me? And she's like, I have a face-sucking witch and I'm trying to possibly stage an alchemy coup. No, you know what? No, I can't. Which is also another big character thing for Sydney because Sydney is always like, yes, I can. Yes, I can do this. 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 So in this book, she finally looks at her little band of misfits and goes, you know what? I'm not your fucking mom.
Solve your
You do it. Yeah, like what? And consider for a moment that you can find yourself a fucking tutor. What if we did that? What if I didn't do all the things for you? Huh? Yeah. And they're all like.
But then she ends up fighting Angelina tutor.
She does, but she doesn't tutor her. So it's a thing.
Yes.
And then later on, Jill's like, but you have to do it. And she's like, it's something else comes up. And Jill's like, but you have to do the thing. And she's like, I'm fucking busy. Bye.
Yeah, like you know better, Jill. You know how busy I am.
And good for her.
Yeah. So she goes and asks Kristen to tutor Angeline, and Kristen's like, look, I do pretty much anything for you. Well, wait, give me 1 sec, sorry. You'll have to talk for a sec, sorry.
Okay. So Kristen is like, I would do basically anything for you, but Angeline kicked and punched and took down a grown-ass man. She's kind of crazy. And so long story short, no. And Sydney's like pretty pleased with a cherry on top. And she's like, no. She's like, okay, that's fair. And so then she finds Trey and she's like, Trey, buddy, friend, pal, amigo, how would you feel about tutoring my cousin? And he's like, what? No. And she's like, you thought she was like hot this one time. And he's like, before I knew she was an abomination. And she's like, but would you tutor her anyway? And he's like, sure.
You really managed to drag that scene out, didn't you? Also, it's a bit racist you bringing up amigo, considering the fact that he's Mexican.
I thought friend pal amigo was like a thing. Did you not? Was that not? That's a thing.
It is.
Okay.
It is. I'm just speaking on behalf of the overly sensitive people, okay?
I was like, but it's a thing. I didn't even think of it.
These are the people who I'm speaking on behalf of right now are also the ones that are offended when you call cannabis marijuana. Because apparently that's racist too. I don't understand, babe. But anyway. That's right. She manages to coax Trey into doing it because he didn't do his homework. And Sydney's like, you can borrow mine. You can copy my work.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's how it happens.
He's
like, what do you want for this? And she's like, oh, it's nothing big. And he's like, uh-huh. She's like, just tutor my psychotic cousin. And he's like, oh, dear God.
And then
And she's like, you got this.
And she's like, well, if you don't want my help, and goes to take her homework back, and he's like, fine, I'll do it.
Yeah.
I guess. Angeline was not thrilled, though.
No.
Angeline was like, but he's a vampire hunter. She's like, no, he intentionally didn't win, so he wouldn't have to kill Sonia. And they're like, yes, but he wants to rejoin the Warriors. Yes. And she's like, but that's because it's his family. It's been his life. He's not a bad person. And they're like, fine. So, and then it's cute because then Eddie and Angeline went off, and Jill and Sydney were talking, and she's like, oh, what's Adrian up to right now? And she's like, oh, he's in art class. And she's like, wow, the bond's strong today. And she's like, no, it's just Tuesday at 10 a.m. Of course, he's in art class. And she's like, okay, well, I'm thinking about doing a witch hunt this afternoon. And she's like, he'll be there. And oh no, that's right. She was like, oh, I'm gonna see if he's free this afternoon. And she's like, oh, just go on your witch hunt. And Sydney's like, oh fuck, Jill knows. And Sydney's like, it's okay. Like, I keep Adrian's secrets, and therefore yours too. Like, she just establishes whatever I learned through the bond is not for other people.
Yeah,
it's fine.
Yeah, it is weird though, and I feel for everybody involved in that weird triangle.
Oh yeah, no, it would be very especially considering also the fact that Sydney is she's part of a secret society for starters, so she's inherently secretive. She's very, very private, and she's also like not even just about that stuff, just with all of her own personal shit. She's an incredibly private, reserved person. So she's found someone that she feels like she can tell anything to, but he's got someone else in his head.
Yes. And on top of that, it's someone who is not really emotionally equipped because she's just not old enough.
Yeah, and
to know any of these things.
And while Sydney trusts Jill and really adores and likes, and part of her kind of loves Jill as well, it's Sydney would never ever tell Jill any of this stuff, even knowing the stuff that Jill has previously heard. Sydney would never go, oh, by the way, I'm going on a witch hunt with Adrian this afternoon type thing.
Yeah, like she wouldn't tell her. So
you okay?
Is it not? Oh, I'm such a fuckwit. It's right there. I'm so stupid. Thank you.
Did you lose your drink?
I did. And I'm an asshole.
You are an asshole.
I am. I'm
you
sorry.
You said around the room, I'm assuming?
I did.
Apologize.
I did.
Do it again.
I'm sorry.
But then Jill is acting really fucking weird, and Sydney's just like, what's wrong? And she's like, so I think you should just be careful running around with another guy. And Sydney's like, what, you mean Marcus? And she's like, yeah, like you should just be really careful of that guy. Okay. And Sydney's like, wow, Jill's jealous because Adrian's jealous, and this is really weird.
It is. It's very.
Yeah. And then Sydney's just like, Adrian's going to get over me. It's fine. And she's like, do you even want him to get over you? And then she walks off, and she's like, and like those thoughts were all playing around in her head, even though she's telling herself, of course I do, but do I?
She's like, that's what's best for everyone.
So yeah, no, Sydney still has a lot of conflicting thoughts in her head because she still can't admit it to herself that even after everything that happens in this book, it takes until right at the end before she admits.
I mean, she has been through almost 20 years of conditioning. So, I mean,
Yeah.
it's basically taken like an act of God to undo it. So, like, I forgive it. It's done in a way that it works. Like, it's not frustrating. The reason why it's not frustrating is because she does what you're like in my opinion, best practice if you're going to do a romance like this, which is you have them have a lot of screen time together.
Yeah.
And they do. Like, most of this book is just Sydney and Adrian together. So even though it's very like, will they, won't they, it's not frustrating. I didn't find it frustrating.
Well, because also you can, especially as the book goes on, it's very clear that Sydney does reciprocate even if she can't admit it yet.
Well, and there's also like a part like towards the end where she initiates it. So
yeah. So Adrian and Sydney are off to go on a witch hunt.
Yeah.
And they're in his car, and she's like, when are you gonna name it? And he's like, it's a car. And she's like, it's important. He's like, well, you name it. And she's and she's like, I love this. Really, I asked, a bit startled. True, I've been badgering him, but I wasn't sure if I wanted to be the one to wield that sort of power.
But like the way that it's read so well, it sounds so serious. Like the way that Emily Schaefer does it, like you can feel the gravity of the situation, like the way that Sydney would feel it, and it's done very well.
Yeah.
It's done in a way that conveys how Sydney would feel about the whole thing.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure Emily Schaefer was born to just read Sydney Sage.
Yes. Because I've got a cousin who feels the way that Sydney does about cars. And he would very much be like, if you were to be like, yes, you name my car, he would be like, your car? But
especially if it's a car that he just looks at and goes,
oh, yeah.
If I could have a baby, like if I could birth this car, I would, type thing.
Yeah, he would be like, I am not worthy. Yeah, it would be like that. He would be like, I want to, but I cannot. Like, it's like that. And it's not ridiculous. It's great. Like, you're with her the whole way, and I love it.
Yeah. Like, more or less every single time she has one, like, where it's one of those things that it's just such a Sydney point of view type thing. And just the way Emily Schaefer reads Sydney is just...
Yeah.
It's so intense.
Yeah.
So they end up finding the neighborhood, and then they find the street, and then they find the house. And there was a sign out the front of the house, and it turns out it's a bed and breakfast. And they're like, excellent. So they go in. Sydney puts a wig on. Adrian does his spirit magic to confuse their appearances,
which was like established in Vampire Academy when they snuck into the prison.
Yeah. So they go in, and there's this girl about 18, 19 sitting at the desk with tons of necklaces hung around her neck in a gaudy display
for no reason whatsoever.
Yep. And she's just like, and so they're like, can I help you? And they're like, oh. And apparently they had a plan. Sydney was going to be Taylor. Adrian was going to be Brian. I don't know what the actual... Oh, that's right. They said, I don't know what their original relationship in their things was going to be. But then Adrian jumps in with, this is Taylor, and I'm Jet Steel. And our anniversary is coming up, and we would like a room we would like to, look at rooms so we can bang away from our apartment type thing. So can we look at rooms, please? And Sydney's just like, oh.
She goes with it, but
yeah, but inside her head, she's just like, oh, okay then.
and she's like ready to kill him. It's great.
Yeah, and because it's a bed and breakfast, it's filled with like all these gaudy things and like there's all these bunnies everywhere doing stuff. And then Adrian's just like, isn't this great, sweetie? I know how much you like rabbits. Didn't you have one when you were little? What was his name? Papa? And Sydney's just like, really? Yes, Hopper. Yes, I do. I do love me some rabbits. And Alicia's like, excellent. Let's go to the bunny suite then. So they go to the bunny suite because obviously it's a very common trope with B&Bs that every room has its own damn theme. So
the bunny suite, you'll never guess what its theme is.
It's literally dressed stuffed rabbits, king size bed with all like the quilting is all just rabbits. There's Peter Rabbit stuff everywhere, and she's just like, oh my god, this is just ridiculous. Sydney's about to have a stroke. And then throughout this, because Adrian's pretending they're a couple, he just keeps on, every single time he refers to her, it's a new pet name. Like he does Buttercup, Sugar Plum, Honey Pie, like all the food ones. And then
when they get out of there, she's just like, why is it always high calorie foods? What is wrong with you? And he's like, what do you want me to call you? Celery stick? And she's like, well, no. She's like, call me Sydney.
And then she has to correct herself. She's like, I mean, Taylor, just call me by whatever name I'm currently going by, okay?
And so next time he calls her Honeydew.
She's like, at least he's getting healthier. So they go and look at the other rooms, the Morning Glory suite, the Velvet suite, and the London suite. Apparently all of which competed to outdo the others in tackiness. It's like, yep. I can picture this B&B well.
Yes, I can too. B&Bs are great.
I don't even have to hear the descriptions of the other rooms to be able to picture exactly what they would look like.
No. A B&B, just like picture the theme of the room and then make it as tacky as you can in your head, and that's what it looked like.
Yeah. Like for example, if you're going to do a bunny suite for a B&B, you fill the room with bunnies, and when you look at it and go, is this too many? I feel like we've just reached too many. Then you have to
add like 10 times as many bunnies, and that's enough bunnies.
Yeah. If you are still even slightly questioning if you can fit more bunny theme into that bunny suite, then you haven't bunnied it up enough. Okay.
More bunnies, damn it. Okay, when we build our castle, our joint property, giant, humongous castle, there just needs to be that nobody goes into, but just as a shrine.
You know what? It might be in the castle. We'll have, because we're gonna have a lot of land, okay? Because we're gonna have to fit 3 damn castles on it, right?
Yeah.
All with space and everything, We're gonna have like over 1,000 acres.
Yes.
We can have some themed cottages throughout.
Ooh. Hey. On our
we have the bunny cottage.
You know how we're building castles in Montana?
Yes.
So themed cottages on the property.
Theme?
Yes, cottages.
Okay.
Yeah.
House of Night gets a themed cottage.
House of Night gets a themed cottage. She just said, I don't know if you heard that.
Excellent, and we'll Airbnb it out.
Oh, we'll Airbnb it out. Hell yeah. Casts are banned.
I mean,
They
we
can't
are going to have
come.
some very high cleaning bills because the amount of people that are going to walk into that room and immediately suicide.
In like the rental agreement. In the rental agreement, we are not responsible for any suicides that happen in this cottage.
Shit. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
There's a suicide hotline like number
There's
in
a number on the door.
just
With
on the
emergency
door.
Evacuation plan. It has the suicide hotline in there.
It's going to have a hell of a security bond.
Oh hell yeah.
Just for the forensic cleaning that will be happening monthly.
We'll have to incorporate that one separately, just so that it's not associated with anything else. Just so like if that corporation gets sued, it doesn't affect anything. And then it becomes a horror attraction. And then Scott Cawthon creates a video game based on this B&B.
All in one life, honestly.
I'm sorry, where were we?
For a video game.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, our plan is to get rich and
Have people commit suicide on our property regularly.
that wasn't what I was gonna say. You can't just say things like that.
Fine, that's not our plan, but that is the inevitable result of our plan.
I mean, you're right, but that's not the point. Welcome to Book Club with Bay. We like to have fun here. You didn't hear this, but she said our plan is to get rich, and then she said, have people continuously commit suicide on our property. I was like, you can't just say that.
I don't endorse this.
Well, I corrected myself. I said, that's not our plan. That's just the result of our plan. What did she find? What did she find, babe?
I'm saying.
Did she find a House of Night themed B&B?
No. Oh, I'm texting it to you. Hold on. I'm texting this to the wrong person. I'm sorry, guys.
Yeah.
This happens sometimes.
Yes.
What you guys see here is real life. I apologize.
You've judged me.
Okay.
Oh God, moving on.
Yeah,
Moving on.
The book.
Oh, that reminds me. I have something to tell you that's funny after the stream.
Okay. Sorry.
Oh God.
So they've toured all the rooms and everything except for the ones that are currently occupied. And then and Sydney's just like, oh, so we don't get to see the Sapphire Suite or the Prince Albert Suite. And now what I'm wondering with the Prince Albert Suite, right? I'm hoping that's the more innocent version of the term.
I know, because my brain was like a Prince Albert.
Because I'm remembering what that is a term for correctly, yes?
Yes.
Thought so.
Yes. You are.
I am going to wait.
Because my brain came up with the Prince
dirty.
Albert Suite, and I could not remember what the not that version of a Prince Albert was.
What is the not that version?
I honestly, I don't know.
An actual person.
Because I'm like,
Yes.
that is it.
He was the husband of Queen Victoria.
Oh, that makes sense. That makes way more sense than the idea that I had for that room. Because I had some ideas for that room.
Yeah, I'm guessing it's a Victorian era room. I am guessing. I'm definitely hoping it's that and not the other one. But anyway, Sydney's like, oh, so we don't get to see those suites, and Alicia's like, no, soz, they're occupied. And then Adrian's like, oh, Angel Cake, wasn't the Prince Albert suite where Veronica was doing a stay? And she's like, oh, I can't remember. Alicia, do you happen to know about our friend Veronica? It's her birthday coming up, and we want to say surprise. And they're like, oh, she was in the Velvet Suite, and she's gone now, soz. I'm like, oh, okay. So they're like, well, that sucks, I guess. Well, we'll let you know if we want a room. You know, we just want to check out a few more places. We'll see you next time. Bye. So they go out, and she follows them out, and she's like, oh, nice car, and she's having a look at the car, and then Adrian, being the cheeky butt that he is like, I think that we should name the car, and Taylor thinks that I'm just being weird. What's your thoughts? And Sydney's like, how absolutely dare you? How absolutely dare you?
It was cute.
Yeah. And then they get in the car, and Sydney has a go at him for changing A, his name, and B, their cover story.
Yes. And he's like, it was better. What was their original cover story? Because it was a shit cover story.
They wanted to surprise their friend Veronica for her birthday. Oh, that's right. That's right. When they asked about her, it was actually just oh, our friend Veronica was staying here. We thought she might still be here. Is she?
Yeah, like the original cover story of just, hey, I don't know. It was like,
we surprise our friend for her birthday. Is she here?
Yeah, because like you would know that she was here.
Mm.
So it was weirder.
Yeah. And then that was Adrian's argument. She's like, why'd you change it all? He's like, well, one, I look more like a Jet than a Brian.
He does not look like a Brian.
No. And two, it's a better story than the bullshit birthday one. So
yeah.
Like,
I'm sorry. To like a guy and a girl walk into a B&B.
Mm-hmm. It would make sense that they're like, oh, we heard about this place from our friend who we spoke to a couple of days ago, and she was here.
Yeah.
So, so while they're out that way, they figure they'll go to, because Miss Twilliger has given Sydney the list of untrained witches in that area, and a bunch of pendants like the one she gave her to help keep them safe and undetectable. So they're like, oh, well, while we're here, we'll go and cross off the one that lives in this area of LA. So they go there, and she's just like, and this girl is not happy. She's like, why the fuck are you guys here? Leave me alone. I don't want anything to do with your witchy woo nonsense. And she pulls pepper spray on them and stuff, and Sydney's just like, whoa, there is a witch doing a thing. I know you don't use magic. I know you want nothing to do with it, but she don't give a crap about that. You have the ability, and she will suck it from you and make you old. I have a newspaper article here. Give me your email address, and I shall send it.
Yes.
And when Adrian goes to take the paper, she almost
Pepper
like
sprays him.
pepper sprays Adrian because she's jumpy as all hell, and then Sydney's like, no, and shield spells and jumps in front of him, and Adrian's just like, whew.
Yeah.
Like, I guess you like me. And Sydney's just like, I panicked, okay, leave me alone. But yeah, this chick's just like, get the F out, rah, rah, rah. And so she's like, I'll send you the thing, but please just wear the charm. And she's like, no. But I think we don't hear anything about her dying, so maybe she did. And then the next morning, she's like, she goes to give Miss Terwilliger an update, and she's just like, well, damn, she's moved on. And Sydney's like, are you sure there's not another spell you can try? You know, and she's like, oh, I guess I'll give it a go, but sure. So the rest of the day passes on. She goes back to Miss Terwilliger for her independent study, and she's like, we're going to my house. So they go to Miss Terwilliger's house, and she does a scrying spell. Mm-hmm. And she's like, I got nothing. And Sydney's like, well, that sucks. She's like, indeed. And Sydney's like, well, what do we do now? And she's like, well, you and Adrian keep warning people. Remember to stay in disguise every time you talk to anyone associated with this. And then Sydney's about to go, and Miss Terwilliger's like, make sure you look after yourself too. And she's like, okay, I promise I'm keeping my garnet on me. It's fine. And then Marcus texts Sydney, and he's like, I would like you to meet me at Arcade, please. And Sydney's like, okay, I guess I'll meet you at Arcade.
Yeah.
And she gets there, and she's like, why am I here? This place is awful. It's chaos. And then she's like, oh, because no one can freaking overhear me. That's why. Yep. So, and Marcus just wants to play skee ball. And Sydney's like, okay. And then he really sucks at skee ball. And then he's like, well, you have a turn then. And she gets like, you know, the 50-point hole every time. And he's like, but how? And she's like, because you throw it in the right hole and then it just goes in. He's like, but I used to practice this I used to play this for an hour every time I went to a carnival. And she's like, well, maybe you should have done it for 2. But pretty much, what does he want to talk to her while they're there?
They don't really like cover that much. Like it's a pretty.
Oh, he explains what made him leave the Alchemist.
Yes.
Yeah, when he was working in Athens, he became friends with a Moroi girl, and Sydney's like, oh, friends, and he's like, no, just friends. Like even I wouldn't cross that line. And Sydney's like, I can't whistle right now, but yeah, she's just like, you know, like, yeah, no, I would never cross that line either. I swear. And something happened with her, and he, more or less, he got in a shit ton of trouble for giving a fuck about this girl. So he was just like, nope. And then that's. Oh, and he's also saying as well that he thinks that the Warriors and at least some alchemists are in contact and working together, and they overheard them talking about a missing girl that could, you know, put the Moroi world into chaos. Yes. Or maybe you learn that bit later.
No, I think this is, well, it might be a little bit later, but either way, they learned about like a Moroi girl that could put a missing Moroi girl that could put the, you know, Moroi world into chaos. And
obviously Jill.
I think it is later because Eddie's with her.
Mm.
And so either way, they're both sitting there, both trying to be very blank faced, but also both like, we have to get to the bottom of this because
that's
clearly,
right.
because clearly it's Jill.
That's right. So yeah, at the moment, all Marcus is doing is just giving her enough teasing to make her want to keep in contact with him.
But she's also just like, if the Warriors are after Jill, then we have to do something about it.
Yeah. So he's just like, I'll be in touch with you later, you know, and then he disappeared and she went back to Amberwood. And she has a message from Jill to come see us when you're back. So she goes to meet with Jill. And Jill's
sorry,
go.
Isn't this when Jill and Eddie are like, we have to talk to you about Angeline, and she's like, oh,
no, not yet.
Okay.
This is where she goes to see Jill in her room, and Angeline's all sad looking, and Jill's like concerned looking, and Sydney's like, what's wrong? And Angeline's just like, it wasn't my fault.
That's right. Trey has a fucking concussion.
Because Angeline threw a book at his head.
Sydney more or less is like, is anybody getting expelled?
Yeah.
And they're like, no.
No.
Is anybody dead? No. Good night.
Yeah.
I'm done. She's more or less just like, then why are you even telling me? Like, I don't care. I'm busy. Leave me alone.
Yeah. And she's like, Angeline, I know that, you know, like, life stresses you out, but you need to find some chill, for the love of Christ, okay? Just stop giving people concussions. Grow up.
Honestly, if somebody has to tell you that you need to stop giving people concussions, you have a problem.
Yeah. And then... yeah, so Eddie and Trey came up with a cover story that Eddie and him had been tossing the book back and forth and had accidentally hit him in the head. And then it's now time for Sydney and Adrian to go out again to give more girls pendants and stuff. And she gets there, and he was waiting out front with a grim look on his face, and she can see that something's wrong, and she jumps out and she's like, what's wrong? And he's like, I don't want you to freak out. There's no lasting damage.
The second that this happened, I was like, it's the car. It's the car. And then he was like, and she's like, are you okay? And he's like, oh, no, it's not me. But thank you so much for your concern. It's the car. And she's like, no. Like, it's very dramatic.
Yeah,
it's
like,
great.
Direct quote, I was practically on the verge of shouting, don't you die on me.
Yes.
Because somebody...
slashed the tires.
Slashed the tires. There was about 7 cars in the parking lot that had their tires slashed, and the Mustang was one of them. And... oh, gosh, she was so dramatic. I felt like I was in the middle of a war, kneeling by a fallen comrade on the battlefield.
It was great. I enjoyed it.
And Adrian's just like, it's okay.
I found myself actually feeling bad for the car. Like, it was well written. I was in it with Sydney. I was like, also, no, yes, I agree.
Yep. And Adrian's like, it's just the tires. They can be replaced. It's going to be fine. My insurance will cover it. It's all good. You know? And she's just like, who did this?
Yeah, she's like, who did this? And he's like, we don't have time for a third plot in this book, Sydney.
And she goes, well, we got to make time. We still need to speak to the police. And then I need to give the tow truck driver, the mechanic, a really severe talking to, making... I know for a fact that there is absolutely not a single scratch on this car. And should we collect the car and there is a single scratch on it, we shall be suing. So we still got to deal with all that, Adrian, okay? And then they deal with all that.
They do.
And then she's like, okay, so now that the car is, you know, getting looked after and going to car hospital, are we ready to go to LA? And Adrian's like, well, do we have enough time? And she's like, oh, Miss Terwilliger will give me a late pass, so yeah, we'll go. So they go. They see two of the girls, or it goes better than the first one they spoke to, but still not great, but they did the best they could. She had a copy of the article with her, so she's gonna be like, do you want to end up like this? No, but wear the freaking charm. Okay, bye. You know. And then the third girl that they go to is a sorority girl. She lives in a sorority house. They get there and she's just gone out.
And so she dead.
Oh, fuck.
Like, you as the reader kind of know that she's already...
Yeah, she's the next victim.
Yeah, she's toast. But so they're going to wait for her. So they go to a sorority party and they make T-shirts. And by that, I mean Adrian. They make T-shirts at a house party. And honestly, this gave me hella nostalgia, them just sitting there describing a house party. Like, I was like, good times. Oh, yeah, God, the memories just... And anyway, so yeah, they're at a house party. They're literally on the floor in the kitchen just painting shirts. And I was like, I can just envision this happening with a whole bunch of drunk people at a house party with just people painting a shirt. Was good.
We need to give them the name of Adrian's fraternity as well.
Yes, Adrian makes a fraternity.
Yeah, when they get to the door, they're like, it's Greeks only. Who are you with? And Sydney pointed to the sorority house they were just at. And she's like, there.
Yeah.
And Adrian's just like, Alpha Yam Ergo.
Yeah, Alpha Yam Ergo.
And Sydney's just like, literally only one of those is a Greek letter.
Yeah, Sydney is like, how fucking dare you do that to the Greek alphabet? But they're like, okay. And she's like, how dare they do that to the Greek alphabet?
Yeah, and then she's walking around and she's like, how dare they do this to a collegiate lifestyle?
Yes. She's like, this is not college. And Adrian's like, no, bitch, this is college. And I'm like, yeah, bitch, this is college.
Yep, so he paints, so yeah, they stumble across a bunch of drunk sorority girls painting snowflakes and shit on T-shirts for the winter shit. And winter carnival, that's the word. And he's like, I'll help. So he's drawn all these fancy shirts, and then he made each of those girls one, and then he decided to paint his own shirt. And his shirt.
And he painted his tattoo.
Yes. So for those of you who remember the first book when him and Sydney had to go undercover in the tattoo parlor, well, he had to go undercover to distract them while she snuck in the back. He described a pirate skeleton on a motorbike, like with flames coming out the tail end of the bike, like the exhaust. And he had a skeleton parrot on his shoulder in a pirate hat with an eye patch, and they were throwing ninja stars.
The only issue I had with this as an artist was when she was like, and then he painted it on a T-shirt. He painted all of that on a T-shirt in about, 10 minutes or so. I was like, no, he didn't. But that's okay. It's a book. I'm going to ignore it. It was fine.
Yeah.
That is like the only nitpick I have with this book is that no, he didn't. But it's fine. It does not matter because it was really cute. So I don't care.
Yep, and he also wrote AYE, which is Alpha Yam Ergo, otherwise known as I. Which ironically is also what pirates say, considering he just painted a pirate and he started doing it, and he's like, not the tattoo, and he's like, it's our logo. And then he's like, time to paint you a shirt, and she's like, we so do not have time for that. That took you a bit, like it did. We don't have time. We have to go back. He's like, I'll do a quick one. And so he gets her a purple shirt, and he drew a silver heart with flames coming out the sides of it. And she's like, oh my God, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And then he gets another color and just writes AYE across the heart and honorary member underneath. And she's like, you ruined it. He's like, no, I didn't. I made it better. But while he was doing it though, she's like, where'd you get that from? It's like, it's just something that's been kicking around in my head, you know, like.
The speech was gross.
It reminds me of you, fiery and sweet all at the same time, a flame in the dark lighting my way. And then he makes her paint something on his t-shirt, like add to it, and she's like, I'll ruin it. And he's like, no, you won't. And then she draws something around the skeleton's neck, and he's like, is that a noose? And she's like, it's a tie. And then she's all sad. And then she's trying to defend it by being like, now we can go to a boardroom meeting because he's very proper now. And then he says, of course, he is proper and dangerous just like you. And then, like, they get caught in each other's gazes. And she's like, but I'm not dangerous. And then he's like, you are to me. And then they start kissing.
Yes. And then they're making out. And then it's all of a sudden somebody walks in and they're like, Lynn's dead. And it's like, oh, shit. We were making out while someone was getting. Well, she was probably already deaded, but, you know.
Well, she's not dead. She's comatose in age.
Yeah, she's comatose.
So they run over there. That's in the chaos. They manage to speak to one of the sorority girls, the same one that they spoke to before, I think. And they're like, "What did the girl that she left with look like?" And she's like, "I don't know. Maybe she was blonde or brunette." Or maybe I think she had black hair. I can't remember. And they're like, well, fuck, this isn't helpful. God damn it, Veronica muddled her brain and she got her. So then they have to go and tell Sydney has to go and tell Miss Terwilliger that she failed. And then, but when, so she was, wait. Oh, and then she went to sit down because she went and spoke to her before class, and then she went to sit down on her desk, and then Mr. Williger's like, by the way, you might want to do something about your neck. Sydney's like, what do you mean? And she sees a bruise on her neck, and she's like, what is that? And Mr. Williger's like, well, it's been a while for me because, you know, like I'm not a teenager anymore, but I do believe those are still called hickeys. And Sydney's like, oh dear. And she's like, you have literally 15 minutes to do something if you want to keep that private. And so Sydney's like, fuck. So she has to bolt back to her room. And she manages to catch the campus shuttle bus and then like offers to bribe the bus driver to wait for her to leave.
Yeah.
And she gets a scarf, and everyone's like, why the fuck are you wearing a scarf, Sydney? And Sydney's just like,
I'm cold.
I'm cold. And Jill's just like, well, Sydney, for someone so cold, you sure do warm up fast. Because Jill actually knows what happened, and Sydney's like, you shut up, Jill. You don't need your shit today.
She's like, you shut the fuck up. And she's like,
Yeah. And when so when she meets up with Jill, Eddie, and Angeline, you know, that conversation happens. But Sydney says, oh, Eddie, will you come with me to do a thing? And he's like, yeah, sure. And she's like, Angeline, you need to stick with Jill until we get back. And Angeline's like, but I'm supposed to meet Trey to study math. And she's like, well, too bad. You can do homework with Jill instead, okay? And Angeline's like really upset about it, and Sydney's just like, oh wow, I guess she really does take improving her grades seriously. And it's like, well, that's not actually accurate. But anyway, and then where are we up? Oh, so then yeah, they go to the meeting point that you know they were supposed to go to, and they're sitting there, and Sydney's like, maybe he isn't coming, and Eddie's like, Sydney, don't you know anything? They're watching to make sure we aren't followed, and then we're gonna get sent somewhere else. And then sure enough, 10 minutes later, they get a text saying, no, go to this restaurant. A very loud family restaurant where all the servers are dressed up like animals, I guess. So they go there, and Sydney's like, God, he picks weird places, and Eddie's like, actually, this is brilliant. Like, learn how to strategize, Sydney, please.
Yeah, because it's loud. Nobody can hear a damn thing you say.
Yeah. So then Marcus explains more about breaking the tattoo, where they inject something that neutralizes the compulsion in the tattoo, but that doesn't save you from it being fixed. You have to get it tattooed over. Like, we've had that same conversation a few times, but
Yeah.
we keep bringing it up.
Yeah. Yeah, and Sydney is like, as much as I would love not to be on Sydney's like, as much as I'd love not to be under the thumb of the alchemist and all that kind of stuff, like internally, she's like, in order to do that, you have to have this giant fucking blue thing on your big stupid cheek, which is way more gaudy than the golden lily.
Yeah, and so just like, can't you just, can't I just get it broken, and then, like, why don't we just break our tattoos and, not get them sealed, and so you can have inside people? And he's like, because what if they find out, Sydney? What if they find out? Are you a moron? Type thing.
Which, like, they have a point, but so does Sydney. And I'm on like both sides here, because I agree with Sydney's ultimate decision, because I think she'd be leaving one radical group for another.
Yeah.
And I think that's how she feels, because what's the point of leaving a radical group if you wind up in another one?
Yeah.
But yeah, like, so she'd turn herself into an outcast, and that's not what she wants to do, but she doesn't want to be, but she wants to break the tattoo. But, their concern is that once you break the tattoo, then you do things that a tattooed alchemist wouldn't do.
Yeah.
So sealing it and leaving is the only option. And she's like, what if there's a third option?
Yeah. And then he says as well, like, before we'll break your tattoo, though, you have to do a task that directly defies the alchemist. And he's like, so an initiation ritual? And he's like, pretty much. Okay, well, what do you want done, type thing? And they're like, well, Wade here, my friend Wade, because there's a guy named Wade there.
Yeah.
He got the classified visitors log, and there is, it was just initials, but ZJ signed in on this day. And Sydney's just like, so, and they're like, Zebulon Jameson, and they're like, she's like, that's a jump. And she's like, who the hell's that? And he's like, Master Jameson, who was running the competition to kill Sonia Karp, that one. And she's like, ZJ could be Zachary Jones, for all you know. And they're like, well, that's why your task is going to be to get the security footage from that day. And Sydney's just like, I never said I would do any of this. And Eddie's just like, oh, because then this is where they bring up the missing girl thing.
Yeah. And
So
so then
they're
Eddie's like, you have to. And
Yeah,
so then
exactly.
she agrees to do it. And then she's like, and how am I supposed to get to St. Louis? And then she thinks of a way to get there because of Ian. And then so she calls, the second she gets back, she calls, what's her name?
Stanton. Stanton.
Yeah, she calls Stanton and she's like, hi, gosh, there's just so many freaking vampires here and it's just so scary. And so I was just freaking like wondering if I could come home for like a weekend.
She wanted to go to an alchemist Christmas service, and can she go to St. Louis? What?
Why are you wounded? She's just bleeding everywhere.
Oh,
she's very.
You looked excited. I thought she just shown you a brand new puppy. She just went and got midstream. Babe, just so you know, you looked too excited to see her wounded. You get off on blood.
No, I was horrified. That was my horrified face.
Oh well, it's the same as your. Oh my god, you snuck out of the house while I was streaming and brought home a new puppy. Just so you know.
I'm so sorry that those two expressions are that similar. Why isn't it coming off? Why is your dried blood so sparkly? Is that a valid question? Yeah, you are a vampire. Her dried blood is very bright and sparkly. Like, it's very odd.
Has she been is she sure it's blood?
What?
Does she have red glitter nail polish? If she doesn't know how she was bleeding and then now it's all dried and it's sparkly, is it?
Yeah, is it nail polish or something? No, it is blood. But it was very sparkly.
A little chunk.
Did she just say she's missing a little chunk?
There is a chunk of her leg missing.
What did she do?
We don't know.
Is she okay?
She's fine.
I didn't notice it.
She didn't notice it. It was just all of a sudden she was like, oh my god, I'm bleeding. And then it wouldn't come off. And then it was dried blood that like was also still bright red and sparkly. Because it was.
Well, there's a lot of glitter in my couch.
Did she just say there's a lot of glitter lying around?
She said there's a lot of glitter in my couch, which there is. And it's like
the glitter got into the dried blood.
Possibly. Because like this couch does have it is a decent amount of blood. Like, because this couch has a lot of glitter in it, not only just from like it being here, but also from like the house that it was in before. Because from parties, there was just glitter, and there's just glitter like everywhere. Yeah, like there was a lot of glitter in that house. And so there's a lot of glitter in this. There's a lot of glitter in this apartment day one, just because of the residual glitter from the house. So she had glittery blood. I don't know. This is what you like. This is a great stream to be a part of because things like that just happen. Welcome to Book Club with Bae. I am Bae and this is Bae. Say hi, Bae.
Hi, Bae.
Sometimes we get sparkly blood.
Has she got a Band-Aid?
Yeah, she got a Band-Aid.
Okay.
And ointment.
Good.
And she cleaned it. We did first aid on the dirty carpet with semen in it. Like, everything's fine. There's absolutely semen in this shag rug, which is where we did first aid. So it's all good.
Lol. Yeah, so Sydney spoke. We'll go back to the book. Sydney asked Stanton, I would like to go to a Christmas service, please, because I just need to clear my mind of the taint
Yeah, she was like, I don't want to be near the taint anymore. And Stanton was like,
Is she okay now?
it was something the cat did. This is a stream. I'm sorry.
And then Stanton's like, why do you want to go to St. Louis? Like there's you know, the one in Phoenix you could go to, which is closer. And she's like, oh, I kind of want to see Ian. And Santa's like, I thought you couldn't stand to be around. And she's like, that was business. This is pleasure.
Like, God damn it, that bitch is a urban. Which was yeah.
So Stanton approves her to go to a Christmas service. So she's like, okay, well, I just got to wait for that then. Now she speaks to Miss Terwilliger. And like when she gets back to her room, she calls her and she's like, we need to meet. And she's like, there hasn't been another victim. And she's like, no other victim, but you know, we need to start practicing some spells. Okay. And she's like, okay, well, and she wanted to meet tomorrow, which is Saturday. And she's like, oh, well, I have to take Adrian to
What the hell? Cassie?
just
Where
the ball.
did she go? Where did she go? Okay, good. There's a windowsill back there. Good. Okay.
She's like, oh, I got to go take Adrian to pick up
I'm
his
like,
car.
we're gonna blow up on Twitch as another one of those people that just throws cats places violently, and that's what's gonna happen. Oh God.
She's okay. We just had proof of life. It's fine.
Literally blood, suicide, and cat abuse. Oh, welcome. This is a clusterfuck.
It is.
Oh dear God. And nobody's drinking on this one either.
No, we're about halfway through the book, by the way.
Oh God, continue.
Yes.
Talk faster.
So she's like, I've got to take Adrian to pick up his car. Can I meet you at noon? And she's like, oh, and she's like, excellent. I'll meet you at my place and then we'll go out to Lone Rock Park. And she's like, excellent. Oh, wait, no, why are we deserting? And she's like, because we have to desert, okay? And she's like, okay. And so she texted Adrian and she's like, meeting Miss T tomorrow, want to come? And he's like, yeah. Oh, no, need to be fast, meeting Miss T. And he's like, oh, doing what? Practice magic. Can I come? Why? Because I want to watch your work. Okay, if you want to come, I guess you can come. So she's dressed in casual workout clothes and Adrian's just like, wow, I've never seen you this dressed down before. And so yeah, so they go. She makes sure that the car is absolutely perfect and pristine before she lets Adrian pay. She even talked him into like more expensive tires and shit, and he's just like, but why? And she's like, because I know cars, trust me.
Yep, and he does.
He's a good boy. Honestly, though, I can imagine that she's the kind of customer that like every mechanic's just like, oh, thank God she's gone.
Yes.
So then they go and pick up Ms. Terwilliger and they go out to the desert and she's like, okay, it's time to practice fireballs now. And she's like, wait, what? And she's like, we're practicing fireballs, make one. And she's like, yep. Okay. So she makes a fireball and it's, like bright yellow oh, bright. Like, it's a dark color, okay? It's dark.
Yeah.
It's not very hot, but she did it. And so, like, each time she does it, it gets a little bit lighter and lighter. So she's getting better and better at doing it. But then she has to start practicing throwing them and hitting targets. And Miss Terwilliger is exhausted because she's got a shield spell on herself.
Yes.
So Sydney can throw fireballs at her.
Yeah, because like she does it and then she winds up doing it and then like she throws it once, she gets a good throw and she's like, cool, on to the next thing. And Mr. Williger's like, no. And she's like, ma'am. And she's like, no, you have to get good at it. And then she's like, all right, cool, I'm good at it now. And she's like, no, throw them at me. And she's like, at you. She's like, just do it. And then she does it and then like, ding. And then Mr. Williger is like, yeah, again. And snap, got a shield spell up. It only lasts so long. I'm getting really fucking tired. Let's fucking go. And so she does it and then it's finally done. They eat some dried dates and then they're like, but we're really fucking hungry because both of our blood sugars are super low. And then
Adrian's like, I saw a place that we can eat
pies and stuff.
So they go to pies and stuff. And Sydney's like, I'm really scared to go in there. And he's like, but why? Are you scared of pies? And she's like, no, I'm scared of the end stuff. It turns out that the stuff is like cakes and muffins. So it's fine. It's like just a cute little diner place filled with elderly people. So everything okay? Wait, give me 1 sec.
Wait, I don't know what happens next. Crap. So they eat pie and everything's fine, which is good. And then
Sorry, I just had to sign off to say that the cleaners have come.
Okay.
Yeah, so they eat pie and then Miss Terwilliger, I think she goes to the bathroom or no, she goes to make a phone call.
Yes.
Because she's like, I need to speak to my coven. I'll meet you at the car. And then so Adrian and Sydney finish their coffee and pie and then they have a chat.
Yeah.
And she's like, how did I get to this point? You know, like I was horrified by all this stuff and now I'm doing it and this and that. And he's just like, you know, like, you're still the same person. She goes, no, I'm not. And he's like, yes, you are. And then, you know, like they have this whole thing and he's yeah, he's just like, it makes you feel better. You look like a natural out there back in the park. And she's like, what, throwing fireballs? And he's like, yes, you
tells her he looks like a beautiful
ancient warrior goddess.
Yes, a warrior goddess. And she's like, stop making fun of me. And he's like, I'm not. And then she's like,
yeah. And then he goes.
And then she hisses at him and runs away.
Hits her again. And she's like, no, you won't do that. You know, like you will not do this. It's wrong. And he's like, kissing you or kissing you in pies and stuff. And she's like, both. And he's like, okay, well, next time I'll find somewhere that's not pies and stuff to kiss you then.
Yeah.
And she's like, that's not what I meant. You shouldn't do it at all. And he's like,
yeah,
too bad, you know. So, like, yeah, they have that kind of argument. And then they leave. And then it's Sunday. And it's quiet. But then she gets a phone call from LA. And she's like, who in LA is calling me? You know, like the area code. Like her phone didn't pop up saying LA calling.
And she's like, hey, so like Jack gave me your number and like I just thought you wanted to know like Veronica's back. Oh my God, isn't that great? So did you guys make like a decision on the bunny suite?
And she's just like, oh, I think we decided to go somewhere closer to the coast.
Yeah.
But don't tell Veronica though that we came by because we might pop by to try and surprise her. And she's like, of course, I won't tell her.
Yeah.
Alicia. And shit. So then she calls.
Do anybody any good?
Yeah. So she calls Mr. Williger and left a voicemail. And then, and then this is where she speaks to Stannon about all that stuff. So, you know, we discussed that earlier. So that's fine. We can skip all this bit. And then she texted Marcus to be like, the arrangements are all made type thing for St. Louis trip. And then it's lunch. And then this is where Eddie and Jill speak to Sydney.
Yes, they're like, hey, Angeline's acting weird. Can you do something? And she's like, why don't you guys fucking deal with something for once in your lives? And they're like, ugh! But then they do. They're like, all right, I guess we will.
They're just like, she's acting weird. She's been busy. And then they're like, we tried to talk to her, but she won't listen to us. And she's like, I'm sorry, but you guys know that I've got shit going on. Eddie only knows about the Marcus stuff, but Jill knows about both things. So then they're like, look, okay, fine. We feel bad. And Eddie's like, yeah, no, she's right. Like, we should keep trying to work on Angeline. And Jill's like, okay, we'll try more. And if that still doesn't work, then Sydney can step in. And Sydney's just like, I better fucking work because I don't have time for this shit.
Yeah. She's like, this is not my problem.
Yep. And then she bumps into Trey. And he's sitting there smiling dopily. And she's like, hey, what you doing? And he's like, I'm off to meet with Angeline. And
she's like, wow, you guys are so dedicated to tutoring. And it's like, yes, Sydney, they are.
Sydney.
Poor Sydney. So what happens after that?
And then she has to go and see the teacher, who is also a botanist.
I'm sorry, the cat is playing with her toy. Oh no!
Okay, I was working out which one of my headphones died, so it's fine.
Okay.
So then she has to go and collect more witchy woo supplies from one of the teachers who is an amateur botanist who gives Miss Terwilliger stuff that she thinks is for potpourri.
Yes.
And then she's just like, hi, Sydney, here's her stuff. She has a big order today. And Sydney's like, she sure does. She's in a very big potpourri making mood. And she's like, does she really want garlic for potpourri?
And she's like, for the holidays. Goodbye.
Yeah, she's cooking for the holidays and didn't want to go to the shops. Okay, bye. And then she goes outside and runs into Marcus playing guitar in front of a bunch of her schoolmates fangirling over him.
Yes. And then she's like, hey. And he's like, hey, wanted to talk to you. And then all the girls are like, grr. And then she's like, okay, this is weird. And so then Marcus is like, what do they talk about this time?
She's like, why are you here? And he's like, oh, I have a delivery. Here's the floor plans that Wade has drawn up for the building that you are going to have to break into the security office of. So here you go. And she's like, excellent. And he's like, so you can really get there? And she's like, it's sanctioned and everything. And he's like, okay then. Well, I guess excellent. Then
he's like, good luck and don't fuck it up.
Yep. And then he's like, you really should though break your tattoo and then come and seal it in Mexico with us, and then we can drink margaritas and hang out on the beach. And she's like, but I don't drink. And he's like, you will in Mexico. And then Julia comes up and she's like, because also he's put makeup over his tattoo as well. So he doesn't have it. And then Julia comes up and she's like, hi, Sydney. Hi. Oh, hi, Julia.
Yeah.
Marcus is very attractive. Apparently.
Yes.
And yeah, she's all flustered and dropping shit and like stuttering over words. And Sydney's just like, wow, I've never seen her like this before. At least she understood why. She got that it was because of Marcus.
Yes, but she had to like drop shit and like lose her mind for Sydney to be like, oh yes, social cues, I know them.
Yeah, and he's like, hi, I'm Dave. And she's like, having a chat. And then he's like, okay, I better go then. Bye. I'll talk to you later, Sydney. And Julie's like, who is that? And Sydney's like, didn't you hear? He's Dave. And she's like, yeah, but who is he? And
she's like, he's Dave, you idiot.
Yeah. And then she's just like, are you two fucking?
Yeah.
And Sydney's like, what? No. And she's like, why do you look so weirded out by that? Like, as if, like, I wouldn't be able to keep my clothes on if I'd been talking to him for another minute. So I don't understand why you and Sydney's just like, I just don't feel it, you know? And they're just like, so then her and Julia go back in the dorm, and Miss Terwilliger is waiting. And she's like, oh, excellent timing. And, oh, no. Sydney's like, do you have a tracking device on me? You always call or show up just as I get back into the lobby.
Yep.
And Mr. Williger's like, no, I just have excellent timing. Moving on now. What's happening? And so she was like, oh, Alicia called. She's back there. And then Mr. Williger's like, I guess I'll have to go out there then. And Sydney's like, no, I'll go back out there. And they're like, and she's like, no, you've done enough already. And she's like, yeah, but we need to make sure that she's still there before you get there, because if she's not there and then sees you get there, then it'll just be, she'll know you're coming.
Yeah.
And she's like, I hate that I'm putting you in danger. And Sydney's like, well, it's happened. Let's go. So then, Sydney's like, look, I'll go in the day. You need the time to prepare anyway. I'll go in the day, make sure, you know, she's fine. She's there. And then you can go and attack her at night. Okay. Okay. And she's like, well, you'll have to get out of class. And she's like, well, you can write me a note. And she's like, okay. So she just tells Adrian that, you know, we've got to go and do another investigate at the B&B. And when they're there, she fills Adrian in on what she's going to be doing in St. Louis.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just like, so you're going to seduce some guy to help you with your espionage? And she's like, why would I seduce Ian?
And so then Adrian's like, so here's what you're going to do. And Sydney's like, this sounds like a really weird idea.
Yeah, because he works in because obviously where she needs to get to is in the secure area of the St. Louis facility. He works in the secure area of the St. Louis facility. So she's going to use him to get in. And she's like, I'm not going to seduce him. I'm just going to use his feelings for me to get what I want. And he's like, that's seduction, you dumb bitch.
So he's like, so what you're going to do is you're going to dress like this. And she's like, that's so scandalous. And he's like, fucking duh. And so he talks her into it. And she's like, this is so crazy. But she does. So she gets the plan. And that's what she's going to do.
Yep. And he's teaching her how to flirt. And she's just like, just make sure. She's like, I think this still feels like a bit much. It's like, who's the expert on male weakness here? Me? Okay. So every time he agrees to do something, or if you have to push him over the edge, just tell him that you'll be so, so grateful, and his imagination will fill in the blanks of what that means, and he'll do what you want.
Yeah, you're always so, so grateful.
And she's like, oh, I don't know. And so she's unsure about following his advice, but she ends up following his advice. So, you know. Then they get to the B&B.
We usually give men advice, but I'm going to go ahead and give girls advice now. Follow Adrian's advice.
If you want to use a guy, not if you want to date the guy.
Yes. Yeah.
Or if you're trying to manipulate your boyfriend, your fresh boyfriend, because if you've been with him a while, this won't work.
Yeah, no, it won't work.
Dating and you're trying to get your own way, this would work.
Yeah.
So they get to the bed and breakfast. She puts a wig back on. They're Taylor and Jet again. And they're like, oh, Alicia, hi. And she's like, oh, you're back. And they're like, yep. And he's like, hi. Yep. When we heard that Veronica was here, we had to come and see her right away. Right, honeydew? And she's like, well, at least that's healthier. But, yeah. And Alicia's just like, oh, she just left. She's just gone out to run some errands. But I think I might have ruined your surprise. I just wanted to make sure she wasn't out too long. So I told her not to be too long because she might be getting a visitor.
Yeah. So then she's like, so then they're like, can we go check out the rooms again? So then she hands them the key and they go up and they're like, the velvet room. So they go in anyway. And then they go in, they look around and it looks like somebody yeeted in a hurry
Yeah.
And then they wind up making out on the bed.
Yeah. And
then
and then
Alicia walks
he's trying
in.
to jump. Well, then they have a big thing. Sydney's trying to be like, no, this is like, because then she pulls away and she's like, no, this isn't right. And he's like, I know you feel it too. And she's like, no, it's just I've spent enough time to get comfortable with you, and my body doesn't care that you're a vampire. I'm physically attracted to you, sure, that's undeniable, but I don't have feelings for you. And he's like, that's bullshit. And she's like, no, it's not. And he's like, I know you well enough to know that you can't be physically attracted to someone unless you have feelings for them. And she's like, that it absolutely is not true. It's just I have hormones raging through my system. I am a teenager after all. And yes, I might want to sleep with you, but I don't want to be with you. And that's right, because what makes them pull away is he puts his hand through her hair and accidentally pulls on both of her necklaces, her cross and her garnet necklace. And the chains break. And she manages to catch the garnet before it like completely falls off, and the cross falls off, and then they're playing with the cross and talking, and then he's like, nope, and then he's like proving a point by being like, look, when I touch you, your aura just glows and this and that. And then they start to have a moment again, and then Alicia walks in. And she's like, sorry. And they're like, oh crap, and they jump up and they're like, we better go. Yeah, bye.
Yeah.
And Alicia's like, looks like Veronica's left. And they're like, yeah, it's weird, right? Bye. So then they yeet, and she texts Miss Terwilliger saying she's gone, no need for action. And then Sydney gets back to school. She does some homework, does some studying, and then she falls asleep, and she's having a really weird dream that her family cat was driving Adrian's car. And then the dream suddenly dissolves into blackness, and it's cold and it's dark and it's scary. And then a woman's like, she's kept you well hidden, but she can't hide you forever. I'm coming for you, more haha.
Yeah.
And she wakes up and she's like,
really freaked
right.
out.
Yeah. And she's freaking the hell out. And
also, she doesn't have her gold necklace anymore, her gold cross anymore.
Yeah. She put it. Yeah, after she wakes up, she grabs at a neck because it's a comfort thing. She plays with a cross. The garment, but her cross is gone. So she speaks to Adrian. Oh, she tells Mr. Terwilliger what happened. The next day, they met at the coffee shop, and Adrian showed up as well. And he's freaking out, and she's freaking out about the dream. And then Sydney's like, oh, Adrian, did you bring my cross when we left? And he's like, oh, crap, I must have dropped it when we left.
Yeah.
And he's feeling really bad because he knows how much it meant to her. And she's like, it's fine. He's like, no, it's not fine. And she's like, it's fine. So then Sydney calls up the B&B, and she's like, hi, Alicia, I think I left my cross there yesterday. And she's like, the room's already been cleaned. I can't find it, but I'll keep looking though, okay? So
yeah.
So then, while they're talking to Mr. Terwilliger as well, she's like, I think you need to go with some old school defense as well. And she's like, what do you mean? She's like, a gun. And Adrian's like, I know where to get a gun.
And so they go back to the defense guy,
Wolf.
Wolf. They go to Wolf, and Wolf is like, they're like, hi, can we have a gun? Can we borrow a gun? And he's like, you need formal training. And Sydney's like, I have formal training. And he's like, huh? And she's like, you have a range? And he's like, yeah. She's like, and so then she empties a clip into a thing, and then he's like, take a gun. And then he's like, Adrian, would you also like a gun? He's like, don't know how to use one. He's like, would you like a blow dart? And he's like, I'm okay. He's like, I had it from my time in the Amazon. And then they eat. And that is that. It was a fun scene.
But then Adrian points out, he's like, wasn't Malachi Wolf? Like, wasn't Wolf's eye patch on the other eye last time we saw him? And Sydney's like, no. He's like, are you sure? And she's like,
no.
I thought I was sure, and now I'm not.
She's like, no, I am not sure. But
and so because Sydney's also like, but why would he fake needing an eye patch? And he's like, because it's Malachi Wolf.
Yeah.
As if he wouldn't fake needing an eye patch.
Yeah.
And then she's supposed to, so they go back to school. Oh, no. Then Adrian's like, also, I'm guessing that there must have been a time gap in between them having that discussion and then going to Wolf. Yes. Yeah. There was, because they saw Wolf the next, like after class that day, because that was in the morning before class. Then they go to Wolf that afternoon. And then as he's taking it back to school, he's like, I got you a present. And she's like, you can't buy me fancy presents. And he's like, it cost me $5. It's fine.
Yep.
And he got her a little wooden cross necklace that he painted morning glories on. And she's like,
he doesn't like lilies.
Because he doesn't like lilies. And she loves it and is pleased. And then she goes and has dinner with Kristen and Julia, and they're like demanding that she bring Dave back to school one day. And then she's supposed to be meeting with Miss Terwilliger. She goes to leave, and they're like, excuse you, you did not have permission to leave. And she's like, but Miss Terwilliger was supposed to give me permission. She's like, well, she didn't, but if she calls it in, I'll let you go. But she can't get through to her. And then Miss Terwilliger calls her a few hours later, and she's like, where were you? And she's like, I've tried, but you didn't give me permission. And she's like, oh, crap. You know?
And that's like what kind of the moment where like really sinks in for Sydney, like how much of a toll this is taking on Miss Terwilliger. And it's like it's another hardcore moment where Sydney's like really softening to the whole magic thing. And not as though, like, not that she hasn't been, but it's a big minute.
Yeah. And because that's not something that she might be scatterbrained in other areas, but when it comes to getting Sydney curfew extensions and stuff like that, she's always been very on the ball.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she's just like, I guess we'll have to do that another time type thing. And then Sydney is trying to avoid going to sleep because she doesn't want Veronica to find her in her dream again.
Yeah.
But then it doesn't work and she falls asleep. But then she gets pulled into
an Adrian dream.
Yes, an Adrian dream.
Yes.
Yep. And Sydney's just like, oh, it's a spirit dream. And he's like, well, you're doing better than last time. And she's like, I guess I am. Or I guess I prefer this to, someone trying to choke me through.
And he's like, yeah, I thought you would. And so in the spirit dream, they play Battleship and Monopoly. And Adrian beats her at Monopoly.
And she's in shock. And he's like, I think me beating you has improved your opinion of me more than literally anything else I've done combined. And she's like, oh crap, you're not asleep during spirit dreams. Like we should end the dream so you can get some sleep. You've got class tomorrow. And he's like, I'll make it up, it's fine. And so they hang out some more, and then she's like, look, I'm sure if she was going to try and reach out to me, she's given up by now type thing. So you go and have some sleep and whatever. And he's like, okay, I'll do that. And she's like, but come visit tomorrow night, please.
Yeah.
And they're like, excellent. Okay, so that happens. And then next morning, she goes to the cafeteria for breakfast and found Jill, Eddie, and Angeline sitting together. Jill and Eddie were having a laugh about sewing club stuff. Well, Jill was laughing. Eddie was just like, this is ridiculous. And Angeline is distracted by trying to draw freehand circles. And for a second, Sydney's like, we should get her a compass. And then she's like, no, we shouldn't get her a compass because she'll stab someone in the eyeball with them.
Yep.
So we should not do that. And every time they try and talk to Angeline, she just kind of ignores them. But then Trey walks up and she's like, look at my circles. I've been working on them all morning. Aren't they so pretty? And Trey's like, yeah, your curves are looking pretty good from where I'm standing. And Sydney's like, wow,
No,
you must
they're
be
not.
trying to boost her confidence.
Yeah, and her math homework, I'm very confused. And it's like, you're adorable.
Her curves, not her circles, her curves. And Eddie obviously can't be like, don't you flirt with my girlfriend, because even though Trey knows that they're not related, he doesn't know that Angeline and Eddie are dating.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, well, let's go talk math. And Eddie's just like, oh, okay, bye.
Yeah.
And Sydney's just like, oh, bless, she's really taking this math stuff seriously.
She's not.
And there's a sub in class again today, and it was another distract them day. And this is another thing where it's such a Sydney thing. I went from class to class, but was too distracted to give anything my full attention.
Oh, this was so funny.
I even shocked myself in English when I nearly mixed up Henry the IV with Henry IV with Henry VI while answering an essay question.
As a history major, though, I felt that really hard because, like, the thing is.
That said, though, I suspect that it, because like with the Roman numerals.
Yeah.
I suspect she almost wrote. It doesn't make it clear which one it was supposed to be, but I'm suspecting it just meant that she almost switched the V and the I.
Yeah, because like as a history major, I was like, oh yes, because of what they did, but that makes way more sense because
one's IV and the other one's VI.
Yeah, I went down a way different road. I was like, yeah, no, that is really confusing because there are so many Henrys and Richards and all that in a row. It's really crazy, and your answer makes way more sense. I was like, the War of the Roses is a wild time, Sydney. You are correct.
But then she's like, thankfully I caught myself before committing that embarrassing mistake to people. And I'm just like, most people would be like, oh, fucking idiot type thing. Like, whoops, I mixed the two letters up. Where she was like, that would have been so humiliating.
Yeah.
Only a moron would accidentally do that.
Yeah.
But then Miss Terwilliger was waiting for her during independent study time. And she's like, I was up late last night. Oh, no, sorry. I was distracted this morning. One of my coven had their life sucked from them. And Sydney's like, but I thought that she only went after young, weak witches. And she's like, I know, but normally she does, but I suppose she must have whatever. And then Sydney's noting how fatigued and stressed Miss Terwilliger is. And
then Miss Terwilliger is like, I'm going to make you a new Sydney. And Sydney's like, you can't just do that. You look awful. And she's
you need to protect yourself too. And she's like, if I have enough strength after I protect you, I'll protect myself. Okay.
Yeah. And then Sydney's like, oh God, she really gives a shit about me.
Yeah.
Because also, like, at this point too, Sydney is not feeling very cared for by the alchemists because she's like really skeptical about them and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And then
when does she actually go to St. Louis?
I think it's coming up.
Okay.
I think it's the next weekend. So we're already on, I think, Tuesday or Wednesday.
Okay.
She texted Adrian to fill her in saying, like, she attacked a real witch last night. She's not protecting herself. And he's like, do you want to talk about it? And she's like, oh, because Miss Terwilliger's like, here, do this spell and go somewhere private and do a spell thing. And she's like, okay, I'll do that. And then Adrian's like, and so when he's like, want to talk about it, she's like, yeah, I've got to do a spell thing. Want to come? And he's like, excellent. Let's go. So
yeah.
And he brings a picnic basket with a blanket and a thermos of lemonade, and he's like, I thought we could stop at Pies and stuff on the way back, and this will give you some sugar stuff. And she's like, oh, well, that's kind of sweet. So she opens a book called Summonings and Conjurations, and she's like, well, this doesn't sound like a very defensive or offensive book, but, you know, like, she told me to do it, so let's do it type thing.
This is the best part of the book.
So then she does a spell.
And it summons a baby dragon.
And it creates a little tiny Asian dragon, because it's a serpentine one.
Yeah.
Made out of quartz, and it's screeching, and they're like she does the spell, and she's like, nothing happened, and then the quartz starts smoking, and it starts changing shape, and then it's like moving, and it's a little dragon thing, and they're like, run, and they're like, you know, bolting and trying to avoid this dragon that just keeps chasing them, and they're like, I don't understand, and then Adrian like grabs the picnic basket and like throws it on top of the thing, and then like manages to keep the thing in there, and it's still just screeching the whole time. And
she goes back to the book, and the book is like, it's not going to stop squeaking until you feed it. And she's like, okay, we have to go feed it. So they feed it, and then she's like, okay, and we can turn it back into a rock. So she turns it back into a rock, and then she calls Mr. Williger, and she's like, you need to call me immediately. And so then Mr. Williger calls her back, and she's like, what the fuck? And then she's like, and then she's like,
demon.
And then she's like, what the hell? And she's like, oh, it's just a demon. She's like, you had me she's like, you know how I feel about this? And she's like, it's a benign demon. And she's like, so you know that I hate all things magic and spiritual and stuff, and so you had me summon a demon?
She's like, you had me summon a creature of hell. And she's like, weren't you listening? It's benign. It's not a creature of hell. It's fine.
And then she's like,
it'll alert you if there's danger, you know, and it
bonds to the first person it sees, and it loves you, and it protects. And she's like, what if there are two people there? And she's like, huh? And she's like, what if there are two people as the first people that it sees? And she's like, odd. Well, then you're both its parents. And she's like, what? And she's like, it needs to spend time with the both of you, or it'll get really depressed. It'll be a very depressed dragon, you see. So Adrian and Sydney have now adopted a puppy together, and it makes me happy.
And
all book people should adopt puppies together.
Yes. Especially if they're quartz dragons. So also with the Calistana, it makes this really high-pitched screeching sound when it's hungry. It can't spend too much time, because Sydney can summon it or banish it, and if she banishes it, it just turns back into a rock. I imagine it's still a
smoky quartz crystal.
Yeah, sorry, a crystal. But I imagine it's still serpentine shaped. I think it just hardens.
Yeah.
And then she can summon it back, and then it's back alive, and it needs to spend time in both forms as well.
Yeah.
Because it needs to have a rest, you know. So Adrian's like, oh, you can have custody today. I guess I'll see him on the weekend. That's when you're going to St. Louis anyway. And she's like, well, yeah, you better see him on the weekend, because I am going to St. Louis, and I'm not taking him with me.
Yeah, because she's like, Adrian's not a very devoted father. Like, it was really funny. It was great though. And his name is Hopper.
Yeah, she names him Hopper at the end.
Yeah, he doesn't have a name yet, but his name is Hopper, and it's great.
That's the best bunny ever. Yeah, I confused Faye. I texted her. I was like, I forgot this is the book that Hopper is in.
And I was like, the stupid bunny, and then the dragon thing happened, and I was like,
I get it now.
It was great. So then St. Louis.
Well, then her and Adrian, she mentioned something about Mexico, because she's like, I don't know what I'm going to do with him when I go to Mexico. And he's like, why are you going to Mexico? And she's like, oh, fuck, I didn't tell you. And then she fills him in, and he's just like, I don't like this. Why are you running off with the guy you just met? And she's like, no. And he's like, are you going to be going for beaches and margaritas? And she's like, wow, that sounded a lot like what he actually said we were going to do. And then the conversation progresses to her being like, you just want me as another notch on your bedpost. And he's like, one, if that was the case, I'd find someone a hell of a lot less frustrating than you. And two, no. And so then they have another one of those things, and it's just weird and awkward. And then she goes up to her room, and Jill's waiting outside, and she's like, I want to see the dragon. I want to see the dragon. And he's like, he's still a rock right now. I can't let him loose. And she's like, I'll be back in an hour. So Jill comes back with like a fish tank. And she's like, present. He's got a cage now. Can I see the dragon now?
Yeah.
So she puts him in there with like a scarf and a couple other things and some more pie. And then brings him back to life. And then Jill's just like, you know, like all in love with him. Like she's just like, ah.
She's like, oh my God, it's a baby dragon. Like,
and she's like, what are you gonna name him? And
does Hopper
like,
get bigger?
No.
Okay. Good.
Jill's just like, what are you gonna name him? And Sydney's just like, his father can name him. And then Jill finally went to bed.
But it's so cute because Hopper's just in this cage looking up at Sydney like, I love you. And Sydney's like, no.
And Sydney can't get to sleep for a while because she's just like waiting for like Hopper to climb out, like to manage to get away out of the fish tank and kill her.
I'm like, he just loves you. Calm down.
Yeah. But yeah, she ended up falling asleep, and then and she wasn't sure if Adrian was going to be there, but he was there. But the whole scene is kind of like shaky, and she's like, have you been drinking? And he's like, a little bit.
And she's like, I wonder why. And I'm like, I do wonder why.
And she's just like, I didn't think you were going to come. And he's like, oh, so we have one argument, and I'm just going to leave you to you know, the mercy of Veronica. Are you a fucking moron? And she's like, I'm sorry, you're right. So then they play Monopoly, but half the things are blank.
Because he's drunk.
Yeah, but I just love how, like, so half the streets are blank, and the ones that are named are like Jailbait Avenue and Castile Causeway.
Yeah.
And
it's a mess.
And she still lost the game.
Yes, she did.
Yeah. So so then the rest of the week passes by with nothing of note. Her and Adrian still have their dreams every night. And then it's time for St. Louis. Oh, Louis. Louis, is it Louis or Louis?
It's St. Louis.
Okay. Just because the non-American pronunciation of that word is Louis.
Well, if it was like it's like Louis the 14th, but if it's spelt that way, it's usually Louis, but it's St. Louis. That's the city.
Yeah. That was one of the things as well. Friggin' after Kate and William had their third baby and named him Louis, there was a lot of Twitter arguments about the pronunciation, and more or less the only people arguing for the pronunciation being Lewis were Americans, and everyone's like, no, he's named after royal people and they're all pronounced Louis, just so you're aware.
See, I just think it's funny that like the British named him Louis. I'm like, well,
all of it's after Prince Philip's uncle.
I know, but
and they all have William, Charles, Harry, and George all have Louis as one of their middle names as well.
I get it. It's just that I know why. It's like knowing why. I think it's funny.
Yeah,
I enjoy it.
Yeah, but it's also just like it's just really frustrating when there's people like arguing over like the confirmed like the royals have confirmed.
Yeah, no, like that's how you say it. You say it. It's
Louis, and they're like, no, but his parents have said it's Louis. you don't get to tell his parents that they're saying his name wrong. But anyway, so she goes to St. Louis. She gets there, and it's time to meet Ian for dinner before the service. And she is wearing still not a raunchy dress, but for an alchemist, she might as well have gone to dinner in lingerie.
Yes.
She's wearing like it's one of those dresses that has like the flesh toned underlayer with the lace over the top. It's a bit low cut. It shows some cleavage. It's mid thigh length. It's backless. I imagine it's still very classy because it's Sydney. And Ian's just wrapped around her little finger, and they go to dinner, and he's like, we're gonna go to seafood restaurant, and she's just like, this is a landlocked state and I will not be eating seafood if that's okay with you. But they're there, and she starts being like, oh, so tell me about your work now type thing, you know, like I'm really interested to hear about the library, which she actually is, but it's, you know, a ruse. And she's like, I'd love to see it. And he's like, I can't take you there, it's secure. And she's like, please. And then she leans forward and she's like, I'd be so grateful.
And then she's like, oh my God, that worked.
And he's just like, if I can get you past the secure area checkpoint, then yes. And she's like, oh, could you do that? You know, and he's like, I have a friend who owes me some money. I can maybe use this as a trade for that instead. And she's like, oh, Ian, you're the best. I'm so grateful. And he's like,
yep.
Yeah. It's a done deal. So then it's time to go to church. So they go to church. And who is there but her father and her younger sister?
Yep.
And he's like, oh, Sydney, you're here. Hello. Oh, and who is this young man with you? And she's like, this is Ian. And he's like, oh, hello, young man. And he's like, oh, like, and he's kind of like fangirling over Sydney's dad. And he's like, Zoe, go sit with your sister. I shall sit with this young man and interrogate him and make sure that he is just as boring as I would like.
Yes.
So that happened. And Zoe and Sydney are just like, this is a bit weird.
Yep.
And Sydney's like, look, Zoe, I'm really sorry for how things were. And she's like, I've been trying to talk to you every time I call Mum. And she's like, I know Mum tells me. And she's like, I'm really sorry about everything. And she's like, you embarrass me. I could have been in the field at 15. Do you know what that would have meant for my career? And she's like, this way you get at least an extra year with Dad. And even if you don't get into the field until 16, you'll still be years ahead of us. You'll have a great career. Thinking like, and all the while Sydney's like, I hope you never become an alchemist, but I want to be friends with you again. So let's just tell you benefits and hope that you grow out of this.
Yeah.
I guess. And then it's time to say goodbye for the night, pretty much. Oh, Ian drives her back to the hotel, and then he just leans over, waiting for her to kiss him. And she just doesn't. And so then he kind of has to awkwardly pull back and be like, okay, well, good night. And she's like, good night. And she goes inside and she's like,
yeah.
And then it's time for another Adrian dream.
Yes.
And she's all excited about Zoe, and he's just like, I think you can get by without me being here tonight. And I don't think it was I don't want to be here. I think it was just, I don't think you need me tonight. And she's like, okay, no worries, that's fine. I'll talk to you later. And he's like, yep, bye. And he's just like, be careful though. Like, I don't want to have to visit you in prison. And she's like, oh, but at least I'd have your company. And he's like, yeah, I guess. Bye. And then she gets a phone call from Ian in the morning. He's like, oh, let's go to breakfast, and we can go in at, whatever time. And she's like, oh, can we go a bit like more at this time type thing? So then she has to like flirt with him at breakfast, you know. And she's like, I didn't wear anything like the dress again. I was back to my normal, you know, attire, but I undid my top 2 buttons.
Because to the alchemist, that's like going in naked.
Yeah. Yeah, openly wearing that into the facility was practically R-rated, and Ian seemed thrilled by the scandalous act. Because it was scandalous to have the top 2 buttons of your high neck blouse unbuttoned. So she gets in. She's got a USB drive down her bra, and she gets that through as well. He takes it to the archives. He's like, okay, here's the books. I have to go and do some work. I'll meet you in an hour type thing. And she's like, no worries. And then she's like, I have to go to the bathroom. And he's like, I'll just get one of the people at the front to let you in when you're done. And she's like, excellent, bye. So she goes to the bathroom, makes herself invisible, and then leaves the bathroom and goes upstairs or downstairs, whichever one, to the security office. She manages to get in, and then she finds the console she needed. And this woman's just about to go on a lunch break, and she's like, fuck, distraction better happen now type thing, because if she locks the screen, I'm fucked. So she sets a computer on fire. So they all like rush to it, and she goes over and finds the footage, like the security camera footage of the checkpoint on the day that ZJ visited the facility.
Yeah.
Downloads it just in time, gets out of there, goes back to the bathroom, goes back to the library, and then just sits and waits while Ian does his thing. And then she goes to the airport, and he's like, we should arrange, you know, video chats. And she's like, oh yeah, I'll email you. Bye.
Yeah.
So then she gets on the plane, she watches the video, but she doesn't even get halfway through on the flight, and she's like, God damn it. She texted Marcus, and she's like, we meet tonight, no games, no run around tonight. I've got the stuff, you know. And she finds it. She sees that Master Jameson was there having a nice merry chat with an alchemist. And she's mad.
Which confirms everything. Yeah. So she's like very hurt and betrayed. So then they do meet and that night. And this was when I was shouting in my car, because when they meet and he's like, okay, you did the thing. And so now we can break your tattoo. And Sydney's like, right now? And he's like, yeah. And this is when I was like, do it, Sydney, do it, do the thing. And Sydney was like, I don't know. And I was like, do it, Sydney. And then she does it. So her tattoo is now broken.
Yeah.
And then...
but you know how she's saying that she doesn't feel really any different afterwards?
Yeah.
There's a reason for that.
How come?
This will be in a I think it's next book. She works this out because she works human magic that neutralized the tattoo already.
Oh.
And
Makes sense.
that's also, I don't know if there's been hints to it. I don't think it's been explicitly stated yet, but the human magic is also why Strigoi can't drink her blood.
Okay. That makes sense.
Righto. Sorry. Yeah, so she breaks the tattoo, and then she goes to see...
So she wouldn't even need to get it sealed.
No. No,
Cool.
if they re-ink it, all she'd have to do is work some more magic, and then they'll neutralize it again.
So, yeah, so then they're like, okay, so now all you have to do is get it sealed. But then she, like, does she immediately call Stanton after that? Because I think it's like right after. I think it's before anything else happens. She calls her.
Yes. Yeah. She goes back to the Amberwood, and then she calls Stanton to say that,
She calls Stanton to be
the
like,
Warriors of Light are looking for Jill, and Stanton's like, what makes you say that? And she's like, oh, my friend Trey, the former Warrior dude. Yeah, well, he overheard a conversation.
this is the only time that I have thought, wow, Sydney, you're being stupid.
Yeah.
Like, I get why she did it.
Yeah.
But I also was like, this is the dumbest
Yeah.
thing you could have done.
Well, Stanton's like, do you have any actual evidence that they are looking for Jill, or just, them talking about some vague, unnamed Moreau girl?
And she's like, who else could it be?
And yeah, so, and then she starts having a go, and she's like, oh crap, and she realizes that she's been going on way too much about it all. And then she's like, I'm really sorry. I'm so stressed with everything, and I never feel like Jill's safe enough. And just being around all of these Moroi and Dampiers all of the time, it's just too much for me. And I'm really sorry for losing my cool just now. I'm sorry, type thing.
Yeah.
And Stanton's like, okay, well, that makes sense. That's fine.
Yeah. And so now she's like really worried. She's like, within 2 seconds of breaking the tattoo, I'm insubordinate. It's like, you've been insubordinate.
I think she was just on the high. Yeah, I think she was just on the high. It was the adrenaline.
Yeah.
And then is it dream time? Then it's dream time with Adrian again. And she fills him in on everything.
And he's like, wow, never a dull moment with you.
Yep.
He's like, go hard or go home, right?
Yep. And then he's like, so that dress you were wearing, tell me about it. And she's like, you can't handle the dress. And he's like, I can handle a lot. And she's like, no, like you lose my shit every time I wear something moderately attractive. So I don't think so.
And she shows him the dress.
Yep.
And then they make out.
And
she initiates it.
Yep. And then they're making out on the table. And then
he turns it into a bed.
Yep. And then he has to pull away. She's like, but why? And he's like, because you're not losing your virginity in a dream.
And then also she's being woken up.
Oh, wait. Because he's also like, I never thought I'd be the one slowing you down. And she's like, I'm a quick study. Because that gets thrown back in the face later. And then she gets woken up, and it's Jill.
Yes.
And it's been established, or I don't think it's been explicitly stated, but it gets stated here that Jill can't see what happens in Adrian's spirit dreams unless she's actually present in the spirit dream.
Yeah.
That doesn't shit through the body.
But she can see like the memory. And so during this conversation they're about to have, Jill like gets Adrian's most recent memories. So like while they're talking, Jill just like spaces out, and then she's like,
and then the two of them are hella embarrassed, and Jill's just like, I gotta go, bye.
Yeah. So because what happens is Jill walks in and she's like, hey, Angeline's been cheating on Eddie. And Angeline's going to tell him.
Tried to sneak Trey into the dorm.
Yeah. And she's like, and Angeline's going to have to tell him, but like someone needs to comfort Eddie or whatever. And yeah.
Yeah, and Jill's just, and Sydney's like, well, why can't you do it? And she's like, well, you know how I feel about him. And, and
God, if I were in Sydney's place, I'd be like, all the more reason for you to do it.
I know. But yeah, then while they're having that argument, that's when Jill spaces out, and then she's like, I should go. I'm sorry to bother you. I'll talk to you later. Bye. And she's like, Jill, and she's like, no. And then and then
Sydney's very awkward.
Sydney's really embarrassed, but she's also she's feeling guilty as well, because she doesn't think Jill should have to live with witnessing her not quite yet sex life.
Yeah.
But then it's the next day, and she remembers that Eddie and Trey have their issues, and she texts, like she wanted to talk to Eddie, but Mr. Williger intercepted her, and she's like, here's a book, read. And she's like, okay. And then she found Trey, and he was like, don't start. And she's like, I'm not saying anything. And he's like, I think I'm in love with her. And she's like, oh God. Like, and he's like, but it's wrong because I human, she Dampier. And she's like, I don't know. Like, just if you love her, go for it type thing. And then Sydney's like, what the hell happened to me? Why? Like, but she's like, her people don't think it's weird, you know? And he's just like, I don't know how I feel. And then it's just, yeah, so Trey's upset.
Yeah, Trey's not having a good
Sydney's
time.
confused. And then she couldn't find Eddie. So she texted him. And she's like, want to go out for coffee later? And he's like, don't feel sorry for me. And she's like, I just want to talk to you. And he's like, after dinner, I've got a study group. So they end up, and then Adrian texts her and is like, do you want to get the dragon, please? And she's like, oh, yeah, I better go do that because he's been not a rock this entire time for days.
Yeah.
So she goes to Adrian's and he's like all excited until he sees her face and he's like, not this again. And she's like, last night was a mistake. And he's like, how? And she's like, Jill. And he's like, oh, like, what do you mean? Oh crap, she saw her. And she's like, yeah, he saw her. And he's like, it's fine, she understands. And she's like, she's 15. And it's like, yeah, so they have another argument. And she's like, I can't do that to Jill. I'm, you know. And yeah, so and he's like, Jill knows I can't put my life on hold. And she's like, well, until you guys work this, block each other out, you should. And he's like, that's not fair. And she's like, well, it's not fair to ask me to expose her to this, so no. And so they have another fight. She gets Hopper and leaves. And then she meets up with Eddie.
Yeah.
And so they have a big chat. And she's like, there's someone else, you know, for you. And he's like, oh, maybe when I've retired, maybe I'll be able to find someone. And she's like, oh, how about now? Because, you know, what about Jill? And he's like, she doesn't think about me like that. And oh, no, I can't think about her like that. And she goes, well, she thinks that way about you. And he's like, no. And she's like, yes. And he's like, no. And she's like, watch her next time you're together. And he's like, pfft. And then, so she fills him in as much as she can without freaking him out too much about what happened at St. Louis. And then it's like, okay, time to go. And he's like, okay, thanks for the moral support, you know. Like they're just outside the car and then the car explodes. So Eddie like dives on top of Sydney. There's all this foam coming out of the car and they're like, what the fuck? And so they're like, oh crap, you know. And she's like, it looks like the kind of stuff you'd find in a fire extinguisher. And he's like, how is it in your car? And she's like, I don't know. And she's like, oh no, what, like my poor car. And they're like, oh well, we better call the police. And she's like, yep, oh crap, the police. And he's like, what? And she's like, there's a gun in my car. He's like, fine, let's dig through this foam and find the gun, Sydney. So then they have to dig through all the foam to find the glove box and get the gun out. But then something burns her hand and she gets really confused. But then she picks it up again, you know, and with a bit of material because it's burning. And it's her cross that she lost. And she's starting to freak out and she tries to call Miss Terwilliger and there's no answer. And then she's still really confused about the cross, but she hasn't quite put it all together yet. She reads the book that Miss Terwilliger gave her. There's a note on it saying, here's another charm to master your magical ability just in case. And she looks at the picture of the charm on the page and she's seen it before around Alicia from the B&B's neck. And it's like, bum, bum, bum. And she's like, no. And then she starts putting the pieces together about the cross, that the stuff with Veronica and how it's all weird. And then she concludes that Alicia and Veronica are working together. I will say, did you have suspicions about Alicia at all with her scenes?
Like, I thought that a character showing up that much would be important.
You just weren't sure how.
I wasn't sure how. This was like one of the times that I was just kind of along for the ride. Like
Yeah.
Trey was like the only time that I was like, aha, bad guy, I guess.
Yeah. I can't remember what I thought about Alicia like the first time I read this book. I can't remember with her first scene. I thought the amount of necklaces she was wearing, and especially based on the fact that Sydney had one, I was a little bit sus on her initially. But after the second one, I really thought that she was Veronica in disguise.
Yeah,
and
I think like
I wasn't sure if the first Alicia was.
Yeah.
Like the one we met the first time, but I thought the second time we met her, she was Veronica in disguise.
Yeah, I guess I just like, I don't know. I don't think I read hard enough sometimes because I'm like, you'll tell me, so it's okay.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I also kind of like the moments where I go, no way. So like, I don't want to know. I like the really moments. So like, I like it when I don't figure it out.
Yeah. So yeah, she's like either Alicia didn't know her true nature or she was working for her, and she's like, no, she's working for her. So then she starts being like, no, it makes sense with this, that, and the other that happened. And then she's like, but what about the tires? Why slash Adrian's tires? How would she have known that was Adrian's car? Wait, no, Alicia came out and saw Adrian's car that first day. It would have been easy enough for her to note the license plate and work out where he lived.
Yeah.
And she's like, but why do the tires and all the other cars? Well, one, then she's like, no, to do the other cars disguised that his car was the target. But why do it in the first place? To delay us. That was the night that the sorority girl got sucked dry. So, and then she's like, and those dreams, I only started having those dreams after the day on the bed where I lost my cross. So it was that. And so she's put the pieces together. She's tried to call Miss Terwilliger again, no answer. So then she called Adrian and she's like, I know things are bad between us right now, but I need a favor. It's about Veronica. He's like, what do you need? She tells him. She's like, I need you to help me break curfew and break out of my dorm. And he's like, I've been waiting 2 months for this. And he's like, do you want me to bring you a ladder? And she's like, no, I'll find a way out. I'll just meet you outside. So then she goes to speak to Kristen and Julia. And she's like, how do you get out when you have dates past curfew? And they're like, oh, the tree outside our bedroom window is very convenient, don't you think? And she's like, I'm not climbing down that. And they're like, half the dorm has. Like, if they can do it, you can do it. Just do it. And she's like, okay, fine. So she climbs down the tree and meets to Adrian. And I think I'm pretty sure she's wearing her AYE shirt for this one, just because it's cute.
Mm-hmm.
But they go to Miss Terwilliger's house. They go in. The house seems empty. But they're like, it's weird. There's no cats. And then there's an ear-splitting shriek. And she's like, what is that? And then Hopper crawls out of a bag. And she's like, you sneaky little shit. You got in my bag. But just as like she's thinking that, she's moved to try and get him. And she misses being hit with acid. And they look up and it's Alicia. And they're like, it's you. And they're like, and they're like, we know you're working with Veronica. And she's like, working for her? I got rid of her ages ago. And then she's like, you're the one that's done everything and you absorbed her too. And she's like, duh. And she's like, and now I'm here and Sydney's like, now you're here for Miss Terwilliger. And she's like, yeah, like you'll be a great meal in a few years, but right now, like you're merely a snack. She's a full-blown meal. So I'm going for her because I don't really give a crap about the youth shit. So, and they're like, where is she? She's like, you're not going to find her before I do it type thing. And then Adrian tries to compel her and she's like, I've got a new charm to make me immune from your crap, And then Sydney tries to do a blindness spell, but she deflects it and she's like remedial blindness. And then Adrian destroys the fuse box, and he's like, that's remedial blindness. And because he can see in the dark, he drives Sydney down into the basement. And she ices up the stairs. So then when Alicia comes to go down, she stacks down the stairs. Sydney uses a fireball to get back up the stairs, but then she accidentally sets the house on fire, and then there's a fight, and there's, you know, with magic and physical stuff happening, but then they manage to get out. The house burns down, and Sydney's like, oh my God, I just burnt a woman alive. Crap, but where's Miss Terwilliger? Because Adrian's also searched through the house by this point as well during the fight to see if he could find her, and he couldn't. And then they see one of her cats, and they're like, oh, look, cat. So they followed her, and there's Miss Terwilliger lying there. I don't know if she's unconscious or not, or just weakened. Yeah, so, but anyway, they're like, you know, they find her, it's fine type thing, except for the fact that her house is burnt down. But they didn't find a body in the house. So Sydney's kind of relieved that she didn't kill anyone, but she's also freaking out that
she didn't kill anyone.
That she didn't kill Alicia. So
Yeah.
she's like, crap. And now it's winter break time, or just about winter break time. And she's decided that she's going to go to Mexico with Marcus and his group. And she's said goodbye to everyone. She's trying to say goodbye to Adrian, but he keeps avoiding her calls. And then she's like, I guess I better take this gun back to Wolf. So she goes to Wolf, and she's like, here you go. I don't need it anymore. It's like, are you sure? And she's like, I'm leaving the country. I'm going to Mexico. I don't think I should try and take this over the border. And he's like, oh, so where are you two kids going? And she's like, oh, Adrian's not going with me. And he's like, oh, let me tell you this story about Silvertooth Sally.
He's such a bro. What a bro.
He's like, I've never met a woman like her. We fought our way across Switzerland together.
If you ever need two of your friends to get together, make sure you repeat the story about Silvertooth Sally, and it works every time. Like if you cry every Tim.
They fought their way across Switzerland together, and they barely got out alive, babe.
I believe him. Hundo.
She wanted to go back to the States and settle down, but he's like, nope. So he went somewhere to live with something shaman, and it took 2 years and a lot of vision quests to realize his mistake. But when he got back, he couldn't find her. And when I close my eye at night, not eyes, my eye.
You have to, okay. Anytime you're trying to convince one of your friends to go after the person they're in love with, you have to recite this word for word. So you have to say eye, you need an eye patch, and you have to talk about Silvertooth Sally, or, you know, depending on your sexual orientation, you can change it to Silvertooth Willie, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. When I close my eye at night, I can still see that tooth sparkle like a star. It haunts me, girl. It haunts me.
You know what? I changed my mind. You can't change the speech at all.
Yeah.
If you're a girl, you're gay for this. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. And then he's just like, learn from my mistake. Don't go to Mexico, pretty much. And she's just like, yes, sir, type thing. And she's like, that fucking weirdo. So then it's the next day. She's packed a bag, and Jill shows up to her room. It's the first time they've spoken really since Jill witnessed what happened in the dream. And she's just like, you're really going? And she's like, yeah, of course I'm going. And she's like, don't leave Adrian because of me. And she's like, it's more complicated than that. And she's like, no, it's not. Like, you know, you two love each other, and no, like, you don't find love like this, you know, often. And, you know, you're just running away. This is everything you say is just an excuse. I'm just an excuse. I don't deserve that. He doesn't deserve that. You don't deserve that. All you're doing by leaving is making 3 people incredibly miserable. And Sydney's like, 3 people. And she's like, what, you think I'm happy when he's miserable? No, but when you two are together and happy, while I don't feel the same way about you as he does, him being that happy makes me so happy. It's the best thing I've ever felt, this and that. And so Sydney's starting to, crack a bit, but then Eddie interrupts. He calls Sydney and he's like, you need to come downstairs right now, downstairs.
And there's her sister.
No, not yet.
Sorry.
We have a British man. We have a very, very attractive British, and he's like, hello. What is his name?
I forgot.
Oh, crap. Give me a second. We need his name. Neil. I knew it started with an N, and I kept thinking Nigel. I'm like, it's not Nigel. And he's like, this is Neil Raymond. He's going to be joining us here because apparently you made a complaint that Jill wasn't safe enough with just me and Angeline. And he's just like, Princess Gillian, it is an honor to serve you, and I'll do anything. I'll do so to the best of my abilities, even if it means sacrificing my own life for yours. And Jill's swooning a little bit because he's British and attractive. I will die for you, my liege.
Yeah.
And they're just like, so are you another cousin? And he's like, oh no, your family's already taking over the school. I will just be another student.
Yeah.
And Angeline and Jill are just checking this guy out. Eddie looks upset, and then Jill's like, also, Adrian asked me to give you this, and it's an envelope. And she's like, okay, well, Marcus, I better go upstairs and do stuff now, because Neil doesn't know she's leaving, but the rest of them do. So she gets a suitcase and gets in the car with Marcus when he shows up. And she's like, so what's happening once we get to Mexico? And he's like, we're gonna seal the tattoos, and then we're gonna drink for a few weeks and regroup, and then we're gonna come back and do it all again. And she's like, and so what do you mean do it all again? He's like, well, we'll find more discontented alchemists. We'll get them to, get information and break their tattoos and this and that. And she's like, and then what are you going to do with the information? He's like, we're going to use it together more. And she's like, and then what? And he's like, we keep going. We keep pushing forward. We need to keep investigating. And she's like, but when are you going to do something? He's like, we're not ready to do something. And she's like, well, when will you be? And he's like, I don't know, Sydney. Okay, we're trying to do a thing. Okay, and we need information to do it. And she's like, well, I'm just not okay with that. And she's like, I'm staying here. And he's like, you're wasting your time. And so they have a fight. And she's like, no. Well, he's like, did you just realize that, you're not. Oh, he's like, why are you doing this? Why are you staying? She's like, because I realized I'm in love. And he's like, did you have a vision? And she's like, didn't need to. It was always right in front of me. So he left. He's like, I'll keep the car. When she dropped him off, when they got to the train station, she's like, I'm pretty sure this is stolen, so I'll have to ditch it soon. But she opens Adrian's letter, and it's not actually a letter. It's just a bunch of numbers. And she's like, what the frig? And then she realizes it's latitude and longitude.
It's coordinates.
Yes. So she typed them into her GPS and ended up in Malibu. And she's like, why are we here in Malibu? And then she walks in, and it's like filled with Greek and Roman art in this like little museum thing. And she's like, and she's like, and for once City didn't get too distracted by it. She ignored all of the stuff that she loved looking at just to try and find Adrian. And then she gets there, she finds him, and he's like, I figured you'd be south of the border by now. And she's like, no, you didn't, or you wouldn't have left me the coordinates and shown up. And he's like, exactly. And she's like, so why are we here? And how is it possible you knew this place existed when I didn't? And he's like, well, I had to start my search somewhere, so I typed in ancient Rome in California, and this was the first hit. And she's like, search for what? And he's like, the search for a place more romantic than pies and stuff. And then he kisses her, and then they make out, and it's cute but gross at the same time. And then they pull apart and realize kids are looking at him, and he's like, oh, well, this is awkward. So then they spend the rest of the afternoon being all cute, walking around the museum together, so Sydney can actually look at the stuff there, but also they're having like cute little moments. And then he drops her back off at school, and Mrs. Weathers is like, it's after midnight, and where is your permission to be out past curfew? You are still, winter break starts tomorrow. And she's like, I'm sorry, I just lost track of time. And she's like, were you out for Miss Terwilliger? Because if she gives you retroactive permission, like, we can avoid punishment. And she's like, no, I was just out. And she's like, I'm going to have to give you detention next semester. And she's like, okay. And she's like, oh, before I forget, your cousin's upstairs in your room waiting for you. And she's like, Angeline? Why is Angeline in my room? She's like, no, your other cousin that's enrolling. And Sydney's like, okay. And then she goes up and she's like, who is part of my new, like, who's the new member of my fake family? Yeah. Like, it's a part of my real family. It's Zoe. She is now an alchemist, and she's been tattooed. And because Sydney had said to Stanton, I just needed to be around more alchemists and everything. She was like, okay, well, as well as a new guardian, we will also send another alchemist, aka your sister, and they get to be together all the time. And the book ends.
Yep. Done. And fin. So that is the book.
Yeah.
The next book in this series is...
Oh.
What is it?
It is Fiery Heart, I believe. Yeah, Fiery Heart.
And then, so we will be doing that the week after next. Next week, what are we doing to... Are we tempting the bodyguard?
No, the player.
The player.
Yes.
The bodyguard is last.
Oh, okay. We're attempting a player.
We are tempting the player next week. And
Unless I got the order wrong.
Huh?
I said unless I got the order wrong, but I'm pretty sure player is book 2.
We're attempting the player next week. And then after that, we will be tempting the bodyguard. Or the other way around. Either way, it would be very similar stories.
Tempting someone next
We're
week.
Fuck someone.
Yeah, we're going to fuck someone really hard. So, and very temptingly. So that's what we're going to do next week. And then after that, we're going to be back to this. So that is that. But we hope you guys had fun. It was very eventful. There was glittery blood, suicide, and cat drama. And
We went for a while, but not as long as last time. So yeah.
no, these books are very detailed. It is what it is. Yeah. Book with Bay. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And we will see you guys next